Okay, we're a minute past 7, so do you know what? We're just going to go straight into it. Hello and welcome everyone, as always. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on this, our very first collab meetup with the Ladies Craft Beer Society of Ireland and ourselves in craft beer community to celebrate International Women's Day 2021. Have an absolutely stellar all-female lineup tonight, being able to highlight the amazing work that they contribute to the beer industry in Ireland. So yeah, fantastic welcome to everyone. So we're going to kick straight off, really. First up, we have Lynsey from Whiplash. So at the moment, what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to grab your Whiplash beer, be it rollover or body riddle, whatever you want to have. I'm going for rollover myself because I know what lies ahead. Yeah. It's going to be a long evening.
Start casual, pal. Start casual. That's the way to do it, definitely.
That's it, absolutely. So Lynsey, first of all, massive welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you say, I suppose, hello and introduce yourself quickly?
I will do. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me as well. So my name is Lynsey Campbell and I'm the lead cellar brewer at Whiplash Brewery based out in Ballyfermot.
Amazing. Sorry, I'm pouring my beer here. I'm being rude while you're chatting.
Yeah, no, good. So basically I've been with Whiplash just over a year now. I joined the brewery at the beginning of March last year, obviously, as everything descended into complete chaos, which is nice. So tonight, obviously the beers that you guys have got in the box is the same the one that I've got here as well. So at the moment I'm drinking Rollover, which is our beautiful 3.8 session pale, which is absolutely delicious. It's full of Simcoe, Equino and Citra hops, and obviously jam-packed of all of our beautiful like pale malts, and there's some oats in there as well. Obviously we can always tell with our beautiful gorgeous cloudy beer that the oats play a big part in our recipes. This is a staple favourite for me. Again, just as we were saying before, it is incredibly sessionable, and it's just really lovely to drink. Really fruity, in my opinion. Citra is the star of the show. It's probably the hop that kind of produce, kind of most in the flavour range for me. And it's just so lovely. Like I say, it's smashable. So it's always a winner.
Absolutely, yeah. This is my first time trying it in a couple of months. Actually, to be honest, it's tasting absolutely fantastic. So that's always good.
Oh, definitely. I think as well. Obviously, the fresher the beers can be coming to the consumer, the better. But also I think it's just it's a classic recipe, but I do feel like we're making it, it just keeps getting better and better. And as time goes on, it is timeless as a beer in terms of what we're doing. And it's a huge part of our core range. But yeah, I do feel like it just keeps getting better. So yeah it's good.
100%. At this point, we'll ask everyone who's drinking the rollover, let us know in the chat what you think of it. How are you finding it? Are you enjoying it? I know I am, obviously, as I said. So Lynsey, I suppose your role then, you're cellar brewer in Whiplash. What exactly does that entail?
So my day-to-day job pretty much entails being like the kind of brewer's assistant, getting everything ready for the day's brewing. Like Whiplash, we're shift brewers, so we brew from kind of dawn till dusk, or just till dawn, sorry. So we shift brew, so we brew from 7 in till 11 at night. So I get everything set up for the day. I clean all the vessels, make sure that everything is, kind of really, really clean, and do a lot of all of the additions to the beer. So we do all the dry hops in the cellar. Basically, the way I kind of describe it is like the cellar people, we care for the beer, like we're the mothers of the beer, the foster mothers of the beer, until it gets sent out for packaging for the consumer. We do all the transfers from the FVs to the bright beer tanks from when they go to get packaged, and we've just basically maintain everything from fermentation stage to packaging stage.
Okay, amazing. And Whiplash itself, I suppose it's a brewery that needs very little introduction, but I'm going to ask you to introduce it anyway. Tell us a bit about the brewery, I suppose. You're just
Sorry?
You're just over a year in your new brewery.
That's right, yeah. So just over a year, kind of 18 months since we've had our plant in Ballyfermot, but the brewery itself has actually been going for almost 5 years. It's our 5th birthday on the 26th of March, which is a very special day for me and my colleague Leah, who's in here. Hi, Dave. So that's going to be like the kind of 5th birthday when the first beer was brewed under the Whiplash name. So it kind of started out as a homebrewing project for our co-owners, Alex Laws and Alan Wolf. Both worked in the beer industry respectively. And yeah, they kind of got together. They started doing this little project, Whiplash, kind of homebrewing at the weekends or whatever. But the beers really started picking up popularity. They were starting to get a name. So at that point they decided, right, let's actually make something of this. Like, let's turn this into an actual like proper brewery for the two of us. So they gypsy brewed for a long time. So gypsy brewing is basically taking your recipes to other breweries in the country. So like originally they were in Ireland, but then they branched out to the UK and kind of further out in Europe. So they were kind of, traveling about, making sure that the beers were being brewed properly at these other breweries. And then selling them on. But again, just as time grew and time was going on, the beers just exploded. Like, I can actually remember the first time I met the lads. It was in London, 2017, and I was just like, oh my god, these guys are so cool. Their beers are amazing. And Northern Lights was one of the first beers that I tried from them, which is so good. And yeah, so they've just grown from there. And then yeah, like we say, they got the plant in Ballyfermot, and it's just, we're just going from strength to strength, if I'm honest. Like, the beers are so consistently amazing, and it's not just in Ireland. Like, they're a global brand. Like, well, not brand, I don't like to use that word, but a global brewery, and yeah, extremely popular. So I'm just so honoured to be part of this amazing thing that's happening, which is so cool. So yeah,
absolutely. And just so you know, my birthday is on the 26th of March as well. So yeah, that's
oh my goodness.
Yeah. We can celebrate together. Yeah.
Extra special day, definitely. Oh, fantastic.
I didn't know that. How did you end up in Whiplash, I suppose? What's your beer journey to date been?
So my beer journey basically started kind of all started when I was working in Australia, when I kind of fell in love with craft beer. I was working overseas, and then I moved back to Scotland, and I started working for a brewery based up in Argyll in the Highlands in Scotland called Fine Ales. I had done a sales position with them, and yeah, basically that didn't last long. Like, sales was not the job for me. I would kind of got to the point where I was so good at talking about beer, but I was so rubbish at selling it. Like, I couldn't close any deals. If people were telling me it was too expensive, I'd just be like, all right, okay, see you later. But at that point, like, I was really starting to become kind of not obsessed as such, but I just wanted to be part of the production. Like, I really wanted to be part of making it as opposed to selling it. I kind of basically said to my boss at Fine Ales, like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do sales. I want to work in the brewery. At the time, there was an opening for a job as the cask washer, which I applied for because I just wanted to do any job to get my foot into the door on the production side of things. But unfortunately at the time, totally understandable now, but the owner kind of deemed that I was too small and I wasn't really strong enough to be doing that job. So instead of moving into the production team, I moved up to the tap. I moved up to the Highlands and I worked in the tap full time. But I was I just wanted to be part of the production side of things. So from there, I just started applying for jobs, going down for interviews down in England, going for trials. And then I got offered a trial with Buxton Brewery, which is in the Peak District in England. I got that job and I worked with them for a couple of years, but basically I'd done a lot of festivals with them in England and overseas as well. And that's how I got introduced to Whiplash. I was working at a festival in London, like I said, and I met Alex, and we just instantly became friends. I spoke a lot, just pure crack. Like, I honestly think Scottish and Irish people are the same people. Like, there's absolutely no doubt about it. Like, our sense of humour everything is the same. So like I say, we became friends really fast, and then just kept meeting at festivals constantly. And I would pure look forward to the Whiplash guys being there, because I'd be like, this is going to be a riot when they're there. Like, this is going to be so much fun. And obviously it was. But then it came to the point where, I don't know if you know, but we actually had a festival back in 2019 called Fidelity. That was in Dublin city centre. And I was still working at Buxton at the time. And the lads had said, oh, we want to invite you over to this festival. So I came over and, basically the first night, I'd kind of said to Alan that I was kind of looking to leave England. I wasn't really enjoying being there. And he said, would you move to Ireland? And I said, well, yeah. And he was like, well, you're coming to work with us then. And that's that was actually how it happened.
That's amazing.
So yeah. And then it took a wee while to get going because obviously the plant was getting built and everything. So I was working in Scotland again. Actually, coincidentally, I went back to finals and actually worked in the brewery. I actually was doing the job that I wanted to do back then. I went back up to help them. So I'd done a little bit of part-time work there while I was waiting. And then, yeah, like I said, I moved here in March and then that's been it. So, but yeah, it's a funny wee story. But I honestly, like, I am so unbelievably grateful. Because obviously the lads and I were such good friends, but it was just like, we want you to come and work with us instantly. And they'd offered me a job previous, in fact, but I was at Buxton and I wasn't ready to move then. So when it did happen, it was just like, it was meant to be. It was actually meant to be. So yeah. It's amazing.
Definitely. It's amazing. It's crazy when you stay in contact with people like that and when you just click instantly and then you have that opening, I suppose, and it worked out brilliantly. So I think, it's worked out for everyone, all parties, especially all Whiplash beer drinkers too.
Cheers to you, man. Definitely.
Okay, so we'll move on, I suppose, to talk about, I suppose, how you guys have been coping in the past year. Like, obviously, it's been a really, really tricky time for everyone, absolutely everyone. How has life at the brewery been, and how has the support behind it been too?
It's actually like when the pandemic first hit, I'd only been here for like 2.5 weeks, and all of a sudden we're going into lockdown. You know, like keg sales completely gone. All the pubs are shut. Like it was like, excuse me. At the beginning, it was kind of touch and go. We were a bit like, we didn't really know what was going on. But I've said this many a time, and I'll continue to say it. It was one of the co-founders, Alan, his sales mentality and just like his positivity, and that we were definitely going to get through this. Definitely they got us there. So yeah, when all the pubs shut, we lost the keg sales. We opened our online shop, which started getting a bit of traction. And then we started doing deals with distributors like Beer 52, you know, like the big subscription companies. So that one's based in Edinburgh in Scotland, but it was companies like that, because they loved Whiplash. And obviously we were only like 3 months old at that point. And this global pandemic hits, and it was just like a lot of our trade was export as well. So at the beginning, we couldn't even export outside of Ireland. But then they lifted a little bit, and then we started getting these distribution deals. So really, that was the kind of start of it. But then the online shop really, really took off. And yeah, we just kept getting these really, really good pallet orders. And then when Europe opened up again a little bit, it became even more, you know, kind of easier for us to send pallets away to like Italy. And believe it or not, actually Japan is one of our biggest exports, which is amazing. They absolutely go crazy for our beer over there. And some of the Instagram posts that you see are just like, oh man, it's so awesome to see it in Japan. Like, yeah, real. So yeah, I would definitely say like as well, like the way that the team that we have at Whiplash, I honestly like I talk about them all the time because we are such a little family. And we really, there was times where it's like, obviously there's a few of us that are from overseas. I'm from Scotland. There's one of our colleagues is from Barcelona. Another 2 lads are from England. The whole, like, you know, that we can't get home, and, you know, like we have just became so unbelievably close. And we've supported each other through all of this, and we support Alan and Alex. You know, obviously the owners were just so like, we wouldn't be able to do it without each other, if you know what I mean. So we've really banded together, and we're just awesome, aren't we, Leah?
You know, it's incredible to hear, and like the power behind the team and what you can achieve together. Like it's class. Like it's inspiring without trying to sound too cheesy about it. I
100% agree. Like,
yeah, definitely. I'm thinking beer number 2 then. We have a few heads who are on body riddle at the moment. So why don't you give us a quick overview of it? Let us know what have we got. So
body riddle. Body Riddle is a beautiful 4.5 pale ale, another one of our core range. The hops that we've got in here are, let me remember, Galaxy, Enigma, Lemon Drop, and Citra again. So like they are all big hitters. I mean, Lemon Drop is such a beautiful kind of like, really, obviously it's in the name, but it's got a really nice zest to it. And I think the other hops that are in here, especially the Galaxy, they all just marry up really well together. Definitely in this beer, like I wouldn't say like there was a prominent flavour that stood out for me. I think it was really, really well balanced. And again, just dead easy to drink. There's carapils in here as well in terms of the malt bill. So the body that you get from it, actually it's the same with rollover as well, but in a different way. Like the body with body riddle, the body is definitely, it's just the mouthfeel on it is really enjoyable, and the you know, like the finish on it is so lingering, but it's almost like you don't want that flavour to end. You know, because like again, like Galaxy is an Australian hop, and it just is just I love it. Oh, Enigma was one of the ones, I can't remember if I said that. Maybe I did. Do you know, again, like in terms of the way that we dry hop our beers, because they're all double dry hopped, and there's just such an array of flavors, and just like the amount of tanks that we're doing per day, sometimes they just all merge into one for me sometimes.
Amazing. As always, I'll ask people who are drinking it, let us know what you're thinking in the chat, in the comments, and time to get questions in as well, folks. If you've got questions for Lynsey, please start firing them in. What I was going to ask was, I suppose you're obviously doing a lot of brewing yourself. Have you been working on recipe development yourself? And is there anything, has anything, I suppose, been your recipe or inspired by your recipe, or coming down the line? Is there anything of yours?
Yes, but I'll say yes, but not yet.
Okay.
Like that's it's a very that's a skill. But no, basically the way that our recipes work, a lot of them are developed by Alex, because he's the head brewer and obviously the co-founder. A lot of them are still inspired by his homebrew recipes, but we just obviously tweak them to work on the bigger kit, so it's not like a small homebrew batch. But we do all get a say, and you know, kind of ideas, or you know, kind of like, oh, I fancy doing this, or if you're inspired by something, maybe we've been drinking something out with Whiplash beer, which unfortunately recently has been quite difficult because just, you know, you don't really get as much coming in, or you know what I mean. But anyway, but yeah, no, we definitely all do get an opinion on it. So, but yeah, there's some special stuff coming up soon that I you know, involved in, but I'm not. We're very secretive about these things.
We should have got you on later after a couple of beers.
Oh, Brian, you don't know the half of it, pal. Oh,
so yeah, you see the comments coming in. Really like body riddle, smooth, a bit sweet and a bit hoppy, but not too much, from Paul and Kate.
Yeah.
We'll come back to Carla's question there. We'll leave it till the end. A question there: what's the weirdest ingredient you've ever thought to use in a brew?
Oh, I have seen some weird stuff in my time. Definitely, maybe not so much like my own. I was there when it happened, but it wasn't my idea. But when I used to work for Buxton Brewery, we done a lot of collaborations with Omnipolo. I'm sure everyone's kind of aware of Omnipolo, big craft guys, but they are known for their like kind of wacky, really sweet ingredients. And Buxton done a collaboration beer with them, and it was inspired on birthday cake. And it was decided that they would put like waffle cones and hundreds and thousands into the mash, which was probably one of the most bizarre things that I've seen. I saw a lot of marshmallows going into a kettle when I was there doing that kind of jazz. But I suppose at Whiplash, we've not been too crazy. When I done the podcast with the beer ladies before, we had a really lovely chat about one of the Belgian beers that we'd done, the Grisetraminer. And it was brewed with rose water, like orange zest and rose water. And for me, like that was quite kind of out there. You know, if the rose water had been too overpowering, it would have turned into a kind of Turkish delight flavour. It would have been a bit too much. But actually, it turned out to be one of the loveliest beers out of that series. Like, I cannot wait till we rebrew that, because it's so delightful.
Yeah, that's a beautiful beer. I see Sarah saying she loves the Grisette. Yeah, gorgeous.
Yeah.
Erica was saying a pumpkin beer would be amazing. Yeah.
Ooh.
Well,
yeah.
You got a few months to get your house in order for it.
Oh, definitely. That could be a very cool seasonal But oh God, I just like we do have some really cool stuff coming up, which is it's definitely it's going to be unusual, put it that way.
Well, that leads us nicely then, I suppose, into what's coming next. What can you divulge then? What's coming down the line, if anything?
What's coming down the line? I would definitely say. Well, I would definitely say we are going to be continuing to smash out the amazing special. Like I think the way that we produce hoppy beer, is just like it's so popular. And it's just so, it's something that we've mastered pretty much, let's put it that way. So that, like we are definitely promoting what we're good at. But no, there's going to be some really cool stuff coming up for the summer, especially like, again, I can't say anything. Oh, these beer secrets is too much for me. But I'm excited about it. So that means that, it's just going to be it's going to be special. And like you just need to keep your eye on the web shop. That's the thing, like not all of it's going to go to distribution to like kind of Mace or any of these places. Like the really coolest specials are going to be web shop orders, and they will definitely be like on Instagram and stuff like that, but snap them up as soon as you can, because a lot of it will be small batch, and so when it's gone, it's just like, oh
no. Lynsey, I thought you said you weren't any good at sales.
These weird little bits. That's how I got the job in the first place, man. We didn't talk about price here, Brian.
Yeah. Brilliant. And like seeing how quickly they go, you're dead right. Like that they fly out so fast. So no, absolutely, you have to be on the ball to get your hands on them.
That's it.
So let me see. Yeah, you're getting a lot of comments saying we're all friends here. You can tell us your secrets. So I wanted to go back to to Ruben's question there, asking about the fungi connection on the Ocean Wide. Was it just for the Craic or what? Or does the maple syrup have some connection into it?
No, the maple syrup. I'm not actually sure how that happened, to be fair, but the love for fungi was real. Like that was definitely like a proper owner Alex, the boss Alex, he definitely has a special place in his heart. And the whole thing when it was all kicking off in the news, obviously I'm from just outside Glasgow, so I don't have a clue what these are all talking about. Like there's this, this dolphin and dingle or whatever, and I was like, what? So no, it was a dedication, and it was a very loving project for Alex. So I'm so glad that they had the wee dedication to Fungi on the can, and the label for Ocean Wide as well was so lovely. Like that was a class label, I would say.
Yeah, brilliant. That brings us on to Sarah's comment there as well, and kind of teeing it up, I suppose. That the artwork on the labels is just absolutely stunning. Like it's so good.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm pretty sure I could show you here. Like, so I live with the head brewer, Kean, the lead brewer, and our fridge is just like a complete every label that we can get our hands on. Every new special goes on our fridge. But no, Sophie De Vere, who's the girl who does the labels for us, her creative mind and the way that she can take the names that we give her, and make that the art that you guys see is just, it's absolutely spot on. Like she's brilliant.
Yeah, I see a few questions there about being able to buy the art, or is it possible to get them as posters or anything like that? Does she sell them, or do you know?
I don't know if you spoke to her directly, if she'd maybe be able to do something. Unfortunately, we can't do it through the brewery. Well, we don't do it through the brewery. I could send you a reel of labels and you could put something together. But no, unfortunately, because I totally agree. Like I would have her artwork hanging all over my gaff, like because it is unbelievable. And the fact that it's her beers as well makes it even more. Like I'm so proud of them. Like I actually send the labels to my friends back in Glasgow, just because it's all that really cool pop art, and they'd all let me that kind of thing. And like, oh yeah, I gush over them so much because they are really, really, really cool. But yeah, unfortunately not at the moment. But maybe DM Sophie and see what she says, and we might be able to get a sort of deal going on.
I think there's definitely demand for them anyway. Yeah.
Oh, I would say so. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Richard is saying, he saw a print that was raffled at a Tap Takeover once, but that was years back. So yeah, maybe it does happen in some way.
Yeah.
We lost Lynsey. Okay, well, we're getting Lynsey back. I suppose it's time to to ask what beers would you like to see Whiplash brew next?
Am I here?
Oh, you're back. Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry. I've just had your internet connection is unstable. But can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good. You're back. I was just saying while you were disconnected.
Sorry, my internet is.
Yeah, no worries. To ask what we usually towards the end of the chats, we ask the audience to see what beers they'd like to see the brewery brew next. So you've already had some pretty crazy ones and some pretty not weird ones, but definitely unusual ingredients in them. So we'll see what they can come up with. And you've had a brown ale recently, which everyone always says brown ale in these meetups. So
and hopefully there'll be more to come. Like the dark beers, they're so seasonal. Like I think kind of moving forward into the spring and into the summer, you're definitely going to be impressed with the styles that we're choosing, because they represent the season, they represent the feeling. I think just the way that everyone is at the moment, like the kind of COVID fatigue is really starting to, kind of be so much realer than what it was before. And I'm hoping that the styles and everything that we're going to be doing in the next few months, not just with the beer, but in terms of like social media, the way we're trying to interact with our customers, because obviously with the loss of the beer festivals this year, that is this year, a while.
All the same.
That's such a huge, devastating blow for Whiplash, because that is where we shine, like being able to, like spread our love to the masses, spread our beers to the masses. And we've not been able to do that this year. So I would definitely say keep on with the social media, because we're going to be doing some really, really cool stuff. Just getting to know what we're doing, being able to promote everything that we're doing in the brewery and everybody that's there. Like I was saying before, we are actually just a team full of stars. Like we have got so much amazing things that we need to showcase to everyone that we can't actually do it physically in person. So we're definitely going to be using more social media ways of kind of getting the word to everybody. So yeah, I can honestly say, like, if you love beer as much as I do, which is hunters, like a lot, then you will be really impressed with what we're going to put out this year, and I will vouch for that. And if you disagree with me, we'll have this conversation next year and see where we're at.
yeah, at Fidelity, hopefully.
Hopefully, oh my goodness, you can go up and tell me what for, but hopefully not.
Yeah. Just to the brews, what people would like to see. Erica was saying anything milkshake, please. No. No,
sorry. I feel you, Erica, but I'm so sorry, honey. No. Sorry.
Christina was saying a dark Czech lager. You had a dark lager recently.
Oh, that's interesting. We did
Czech.
the Schwarz beer, yeah, dark Sweden, which actually I loved. That was such a really good beer. Anything along those kind of like dark, like the kind of more German styles, Dunkols, like anything that's really like more kind of along that style, I am 100% up for. Yep.
Yeah. Excellent. And a couple of votes for a mild. We opened up our last month's meetup flagship February with the four provinces Gob Fluck Dark Mild, which went down a treat. So there's a lot of love for that sort of style, I think.
Also within the team, pal, there's definitely a lot of love for that in the team. Like now that we know that the masses want it, I really think we could work our little magic and try and get something in there. But at least, because the thing is as well, like a lot of these beers, like you really want to have them in keg. Sometimes you have it at a can, it's just not the same. Like, you want a pint of it. But that's just me wishful thinking. But no, it's definitely something within the team that we've spoken a lot about. So that could be a watch this space moment.
Yeah, excellent. Exciting to hear. And yeah, a lot of love for dark steering as well, myself included. That was a stunning beer. Lisa was saying she'd love to see it as a core range.
Yeah.
Kind of stay forever, but more dark lagers in general. Yes, please.
Oh, I agree. Oh my goodness. I agree completely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking at the clock, Lynsey. We're just gone after past. We had a question from Carla earlier about Sunday's game, Scotland v Ireland. Who's going to win?
Obviously, I want Scotland to win, but you know what? No matter what, we're all winners.
Drink a nice beer and you'll be the winner. That's it.
Yeah. But Mon Alba. Yeah.
Spot on. Lynsey, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. Really, really appreciate it. You're doing like unbelievable work, as everyone knows. Everyone here is here to see you and have beers and have chats. So thanks a mil. I really, really appreciate it. And we'll hopefully chat soon.
Definitely, and thank you so much for having me, and it was so lovely to see you all, and hopefully we can meet at a beer festival in person soon. But big love, thank you so much.
Spot on. Cheers, Lynsey.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, big clap is right. So we're gonna mosey across now. We'll see if Anya is with us.
Hi.
Say hello to... Hey Anya, how are you?
Hi, how's things?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Great, thank you.
Good to see you. Let me see now. So folks, now is your cue to grab whichever beer you want to have, either the lager or the Irish ale. And it also, if you're having the heat sink porter for Metalman up next, I'd recommend taking that out of the fridge now as well. If you're so inclined, might be a nice time to take it out and let it come up to temp a bit. What I'm going to do, Anya, I'm going to grab mine out of the fridge just very quickly. It's right beside me, so I'll be 2 seconds. Yeah. While I'm doing that, why don't you say a quick hello, I suppose, and introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Well, thanks a million, Brian, for having me. My name is Anya. I am the head brewer in Connemara Brewery. We are relatively young to the scene. We started brewing around this time last year when everything hit. So we've just been tipping away for the last year. And I suppose myself, I have a good long history in brewing. I feel old beside Lynsey. I am now about 15 years in the game, nearly 20. I started way back in Harp in college. And then I moved out to Australia and I worked for both big and small breweries out there. Moved back 6 years ago and worked with Boyne Brewhouse and then moved on to Wicklow Wolf. And then as a family, we decided to move back to Galway because both me and my partner are from Galway. And I said, I might have to put brewing on the back burner for a little while. But thankfully, I met up with Fran through my brother-in-law. And Fran had just got the brewery out in Carrow and was looking for someone to run it. And I said, I'll do it. Thank you very much. And here we are now, a year down the line with 2 beers.
Amazing. Great to hear. Yeah, you've had a fantastic career to date so far. Anyway, it sounds amazing. You've got
a long career. Yeah, I've been lucky.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's still only getting started, I'd say. So yeah, his first comment in there saying love the lager. I've gone for the lager myself.
Me too. Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. So I suppose why don't you give us a quick run through the lager then, Anya? What have we got here?
Yeah, well, this is our flagship. I love lagers. I've always loved lagers. And for a long time in craft brewing, I think lagers weren't seen as the things to brew because they might have been a bit, there wasn't enough going on in them or whatever. But I always like to challenge myself on a lager. And I said, now I have the chance. I'm going to put it out front and center. We're going lager first and we're going lager strong. So with this, it's a real Czech style. It's easygoing. It's balanced. It's a little bit spicy, a little bit malty. The main thing you get, I think, all through the palate is the balance. It's a little bit fizzy. It's easy to drink. It comes in at 4.5%, so it's not going to knock your socks off. And it's all Saz, straight from Czech. It's Cormac, our brewer, who is a little brewing powerhouse in a big man, but he got to know the Czech man that does the hop farming over there, so they're real pure hops that come straight from Czech from us. Real traditional brewing methods, open fermenter, which can be sometimes a challenge in itself. And as I said, we said we wanted something smashable, approachable, really easy to drink, and I think that's what we've gotten this. So as I said, there's nothing to hide behind. It's balanced, it's clean, and it's refreshing, and hopefully will entice people that would say, oh, craft, there's too much going on there, to just have a taste, see how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you can see the comments coming in on you. So a lot of love for it anyway. People are really, really enjoying it.
No, sorry.
This is my first taste of it, and it's absolutely stunning. It's there's a lovely fullness to it, like nice body. Even it's 4.5%. There's a lot going on. Like it's not it's in no way thin.
Yeah.
Gorgeous beer. Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, well, congrats anyway. It's a beautiful beer.
So I said, it's like my baby. Lagers are my thing, you know, so they don't have to be boring and bland and watery and fizzy, you know. So that's what we did. We said we'd make an old school lager that everyone can drink, you know.
Yeah, lovely stuff. So Connemara itself then, obviously Connemara Brewing Company. You said you've been going for about a year now, was it? A little over a year?
Yeah. Brewing, yeah.
Little over a year brewing. So how have you found it, I suppose? You're a relatively young brewery, obviously, even though you huge amount of experience. How have you found getting up and going?
Yeah, it was great. You know, as I said, Fran is the owner, and he acquired the brewery a good few years back now, and he said he'd wait and just find someone to run it for him. So 2 years ago, I moved back and was fortunate enough to get to meet up with Fran, and he said, "Okay, here's the brewery. See what you can do with it." So walked in. It was a lovely brewery. We invested quite heavily in quality systems and, you know, temperature controls and things like that. But essentially everything was there that we needed. So we just got going, and then we got Cormac in. Cormac Lynch is our brewer, our everyday brewer, as I call him, or the chief bottle washer, the poor lad. And myself and Cormac, just as Lynsey was saying, team is very important. You know, he's just a great guy and we've got on really well together. And whereas I love lagers, he loves ales. So we just got going. We just started to see, and you know yourself, 3 or 4 goes, you're like, well, we're not too sure. Then accidentally, as I'll go through with the ale, we mixed 2 things together and went, this works, you know. So it's been good. It's been really good brewing in a small village, and you know, bringing a brewery back to life, you know, was really nice as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see there a lot of love for the lager coming in. A huge amount of people really enjoying it here, and the artwork as well. A lot of people really enjoyed the artwork too, saying that how it's lovely, clean and simple, but really well done. So there was a question there about the brewery. Brian was asking, who was the brewery acquired from?
Yeah, it was. I'm just looking at your comments here now, lads. It was the old independent building. So yeah, we that's where we are. So it looks a bit different now, and we've upgraded quite a bit. But the original brewery was the independent. Yeah.
Okay, very good. So obviously, if you've been brewing just over a year, you've started up at quite a difficult time, I suppose it's fair enough to say, the past year. Tying together, obviously, you've got Connemara front and center in your name and on the cans. How has the local support been in general and in getting up and running through obviously COVID difficult times?
It's amazing. As I this year I've been looking for silver linings and everything. You know, we're in a pandemic. Let's find the silver linings, and I think the local support and even Irish support for smaller breweries has been absolutely amazing. So and they're just so happy to see an old business that they thought was gone back up again and life in it. And, you know, we've got artists in to do our local artists in to do all the artwork. And, you know, we've our junior brewer is a young lad from the village, and they were just so nice. The local shop coming knocking on our door, looking for it to see when we were going into the shops. And, you know, it's just so nice to see. And I think that the pandemic has really helped that, you know, that we've been really embraced in Carrow, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's great to see. So many people we get on, just ask about the local support in the past 12 months, and they just say, just phenomenal. Everyone just rallies around and gets behind it. So it's great to hear. Really great. More love for the lager coming in there, super tasty. First time having it, love the branding. I think a lot of people are on the lager. There might be a couple of heads on the ale now as well. So do you want to give us a quick overview of what's in it? What is it?
Sure do. So again, I think really what we're all about is, you know, we're a brewery in Connemara, one of the oldest places on the earth, but we're trying to make really drinkable beers. You know, they're made the old ways, but I'm not going to say these IBUs are out of this world or whatever. They're quite balanced, quite approachable beers, and I think that's what you'll find with the ale as well. So what we did with the ale was ale happened kind of by accident, like, you know, but it was great. So, you know, with your normal, we didn't want it to be too bitter. So we said we'll come through with kind of the tropical fruits and we'll try and keep the bitterness low enough in it. So again, it's easy to drink. So we've got a bit of a hop medley in there. Like, you know, we've got Citra that goes in on the dry hop, and we've got Cashmere, we've got Chinook, and, you know, there's other ones like that. And they all, as Lynsey said as well, you find what marries best together and they seem to work. But then what we did with the ale was we had 2 different pilots with 2 different yeasts. And we said, okay, if we mix these 2 together, how do these work? And it worked actually really well, and they don't compete with each other. So they ferment out really well. So what has happened is the yeast actually plays quite a big part in this flavor as well. So it's quite citrusy from the yeast, but then you've got the pleasant fruitiness from the hops at the end. It's a little bit malty, but it's all, again, quite a balanced ale, you know, and that's what I think, well, that's what I hope you'll get from it, you know. Easy to drink again.
Yeah, definitely. No, there's love coming in for the ale there as well. Carla said she had it during the week. Very refreshing, grapefruit vibes. Yeah, so as you were saying, Trish and Ruth saying they're loving the ale. Ruben was saying Pauline reckons adding a little Atlantic sea salt would be amazing with this one.
Well, now that's it. Yeah, and especially where we are.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, that'd be a nice touch, definitely.
Yeah.
So we'll go back to, I suppose, your career, Anya. As you said, you've been to a good few different places, and did you say it was New Zealand as well?
No, Australia.
Oh, Australia.
Yeah.
Sorry, Australia. Yeah. How long were you there for, and where were you working when you were over there?
So I went to Australia in 2006, and I was there for 8 years. So I started over in Australia went out one night and was really lucky, met 2 lovely brewers, and they said, oh, we're looking for a brewer. And I had just come from Harriet Watt. I'd finished my master's in brewing and distilling. And I said, I'll just keep going traveling now. And Australia's craft beer scene was very vibrant back then, whereas Ireland still wasn't massive. So went over to Australia and started working for Matilda Bay, which is one of the big small breweries over there, and they're owned by Carlton United Breweries. So I worked for Matilda Bay. That's where, as I said, I really learned my trade there. You know, like you put in the hard yards there, and, you know, like that had to go weight training so I could keep up with the job, because you're moving pumps and you're moving grain and you're moving everything else. And that's where I learned all that. And then I moved into the mother brewery then for a few years as well. So I got to see both sides of the coin and decided craft was where I want to be.
Yeah. Amazing. And then I saw you came home and you were in Boyne initially.
Yeah. So I came home for my brother's wedding and I went, wow, this is brilliant. There's craft beer everywhere in Ireland. I'll try and look for a job. So, and then as it happened, Boyne was starting up and looking for someone to help them build the brewery. So I went in there and did that with them. So yeah, that was a great learning curve. You know, I'd built bigger breweries, but trying to build a smaller brewery, you have to be a master. You have to know everything, you know. So it was a big learning curve.
Amazing. And then down to Wicklow for a bit. Yeah.
Again, they needed someone to build a new brewery, so I went down there to help them out with that. So okay. and then as I said, I thought I'd have to hang up my boots for a little while, because as for family reasons, we had to come back to Galway. And thought, I don't know if there's anything down there. I might have to retire early, and then just happily met up with Fran. So
amazing. I think if there's anyone on the call here today who's looking to set up a brewery, I think you know who to give a shout to anyway. Plenty of experience there. That's amazing. So just to go back to the comments here again, loads of love. Kelly was saying the Irish ale is a winner as well here. Katie saying it's lovely sessionable ale. Ruben would drink numerous pints of the lager. Yeah, I agree on the lager. It's beautiful. Jess and Mick were asking what kind of yeast is in the lager.
Lager yeast, yeah. Not going to give all my secrets away. But
okay.
Just regular, yeah.
Fair enough. So then I suppose coming down the line, I know you're again, as I said, a relatively young brewery, but have you got plans in the pipeline for the I suppose the short to medium and long term, I guess?
Yeah, I suppose. Well, keep going as best as we can keep going at the moment. Like for us, we started brewing, and the original plan was to kind of try and dominate kind of on trade, and like get into pubs and do things like that first. So we kind of had to flip around when COVID happened, and we said, no, well, there's no sales there, so let's go into cans. So when then we started the online shop as well, because we don't have, we were like, how are we going to get around the country? This is the best way to do it. So for now, it's just to kick off, build the sales. We're a year open, but really when you put together, we're only a few months old, really, when you take out all the COVID time.
Sure.
So specials definitely down the line. Can't stop Cormac. He's great. He has a little pilot plant there that he's tinkering away on all the time. And at the moment, I'm actually out in maternity leave. So I pop in and out every so often. I'm not there every day. But he's always got something lovely going. So, we'd like to think that there'll be specials coming, small batch specials, and, maybe in a pop-up or something like that down the line, so.
Yeah, brilliant.
We have a Defender. We'd like to think we can do something, make it a nice bar out of it or something. So, to get our name around the country. So.
That'd be absolutely incredible. We had a Kev on from Stone Barrel at the end of February there, and he has an ice cream van that he basically wants to turn into a mobile bar. Yeah. Which would be hilarious.
We can all meet in the middle and just have a festival. Or beer trucks instead of food trucks.
Yeah, definitely. Eric was saying well done on both beers. Would love to see them in more off licenses in Dublin.
Yeah, so would we. Yeah, we're really trying to work on that hard. We're trying to get out there.
Okay, well, yeah, and hopefully now everyone here this evening can go out and start harassing your local off license. But maybe not harassing, but encouraging them to get it in.
Eagerly encouraging would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah. Exactly. I'll start to open it out now to questions if people want to start popping them in and typing in, and questions, and also what they'd like to see you brew next. I suppose these small batches would be really, really interesting to see.
We're a blank sheet at the moment, so fire ahead.
Get the ideas in. I'll kick it off and just say what we had at the end of Whiplash there, the dark milds. If you're kind of going the traditional style route with the beers, that could be a fantastic one. Yeah, and it'd be well received, I'm sure, by many people here.
Well, I as I said, I love lagers, and one of my favorite brews that I did in Australia was a dark lager. So I'd love to do that. There'll definitely be something like that coming, So
yeah. That's amazing. I don't know, Christina, if you saw her comment, it literally just came in saying your lager is fantastic, so I'd love to see a dark one.
There we go. Yeah.
Amazing. Brilliant. Yes, the dark lagers. I think, you could be onto a winner there. Yeah, looking forward to dark lager. Yeah, I guess it's coming down the line.
Yeah, they're lovely though, and people just think because they're dark coming out it's going to be a heavy stout or porter or something, then you can surprise them with all this freshness. That's what I love about a good dark lager.
Yeah. Sarah saying you've no choice now, dark lagers.
Yeah, we'll chuck that one down.
Yeah. Richard was saying there, building on Ruben's sea salt edition, how about a Gosa? Maybe not the best idea when you're just starting off. Might be a bit of an adventurous one, I suppose, straight off the bat, but could work.
Yeah, but I think because we've gone sessionable with our two main products, that leaves us to do what we want on our seasonals. So we're approachable and sessionable in our ale and our lager. So we would like to think we will have a bit of fun, with our small batches. So yeah, I would say I like that. I like those ideas.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah. And by the way, Richard, the first Craic collab with Hope was a Gosa. So what are you getting at? That's not the best first beer to go with. Katie's saying something using the local seaweed saison.
Yeah, could be a goer. Yeah, I think Claire in Dungarvan, you had a seaweed for a long while.
Yeah, true. Actually, yeah. Beautiful beer, beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then, I guess in Ireland, then, you just qualified from Harriet Watt. Did you go straight to Australia literally directly afterwards?
Yeah, I kept going. I said, I'm a student now and I'm used to traveling. I'll keep going. So, I graduated in 2006, but was in Australia for my graduation.
Okay.
So, yeah, but I had done biotechnology in Dublin before that, which had a whole 4 years on brewing sciences. So I'd ended up in HARP for a year. So yeah, I started early, started in the 1990s. So.
Okay, very, very good. And then what year did you say you came back in then?
Came back in 2014.
Okay, right, yeah, very good.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, Boyne, we're just getting up and running
at
the time, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, very good. A few more requests coming in here. Oyster stout, if we're going with local ingredients.
Yeah, like it. Yeah, good milk stout base. Actually, Cormac, our brewer, has done an oyster stout before. So yeah, I'd like to give that a go again.
Okay, yeah, amazing. Adam was saying, you always wanted to get into brewing, or did you always want to get into brewing, I suppose, or did it run in the family?
Well, the drinks industry ran in the family. My granddad worked in Middleton, but he was just a cellar boy, but yeah, so I always loved science. I was one of those nerdy girls, like from first year, second year in school, all I wanted to do was science. And then when I went into biotechnology, I thought, I'll be splicing genes forever. And then I was like, hang on, there's a brewing. The brewing comes under biotechnology. And that's how I got into it. I was always into different beers. And then I was like, I can do this for a living. I'll do this. So yeah. Once I discovered it, I didn't let it go.
Brilliant. Leah was asking, being a woman in brewing, were there any challenges before that that you think have gone away with time, and was it challenging to break into at the time?
Well, yes and no. You were a novelty when I first started, so that kind of stood to you a little bit, but things like you're physically being able to do the job was something that I really had to work on. You had to be strong. You had to be able to lift full kegs and roll them. And, so I suppose that was the challenge to break, and then Australia, you see, is real casual, and they were really into their beer as it was. And I broke into my career and learned my trade in Australia. So they used to love to see a woman in the brewery, and like they'd make a joke of it and keep going. But the challenge was to really be physically able for the job. That was the big shock for me, Yeah. So.
Okay, amazing. And I suppose, do you think times have changed now where it's a little bit easier to break into than it was before?
There's like Ireland's a great, like, look at this lineup tonight. It's amazing. So we're doing well for women in beer in Ireland alone. And I was actually just looking at Pink Boots Society there. When I first started in Pink Boots Society in Australia, there was 6 of us. And I was just looking at a few events in Australia during the week, and there's throngs of women. It's just brilliant. It's not completely unusual anymore like it was 15, 20 years ago. Yes. So like in my master's, there was 32 in the class and 2 of us were women.
Okay, right,
that's changed.
When we were chatting before, actually, you mentioned that you used to get involved in, I suppose, a lot of International Women's Brew Day events when you're over in Australia. What sort of events went on? Like, what sort of, was it collab brews or what happened?
Yeah, so every year we get together and we take one of our breweries every year and we just travel around and we just meet, do a collab, normally in a champagne bottle, share. So we had Nincassie's Angels for a lot. We did... So we did a lot of triples and just things that would sit in a bottle nicely and you could share them a few years later. I still have a few of them. They're downstairs, actually. I still have a few of them around. But yeah, it was lovely because they were a little bit of ahead of their time. We were doing all these events for years and years and years. And it was just nice for us all to get together. As I said, there was only 6 of us when we started. So we'd, as I said, we'd go around to each of our breweries and just sit and talk, and then every year we donate to a different charity, or we'd give the money to a scholarship for a girl to get into brewing, which I thought was a lovely idea. So
that's amazing. Yeah. Love it. Do you think there's scope to get something along those lines going in Ireland?
Oh, I'd love to think yes, for sure. Yeah. So as I said, yeah. So, and it's events like this, where we're all sitting down and talking, and you can just see how many of us there is that we could all, I'm sure we can get something going. I'd love to think we can, so.
Yeah, I think that would be absolutely incredible to see. I think I can see a lot of nodding heads as well. So, yeah, I think that there'd be a lot of love for the idea. Just to jump back to a couple of questions here. So Erica was asking, do you think we'll see your lager and ale on tap in any Galway Bay bars, for example, when they eventually reopen?
That'd be lovely. Yeah, if they'll have us, for sure. Yeah. Love to think we can, as you have to be a co-opetition because we're so small. We all have to work together, so yeah, it'd be nice to think that we will get in there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Christina's just saying, yes, we absolutely can, by the way, organise the collab brew. Would love to get the beer ladies involved. Richard was asking, is a tap room an option or of interest for you, assuming the legislation gets sorted?
Tap room's built and was ready to go. We're on the Wild Atlantic Way. We've buses passing our door every day. We'd be silly not to, and we're beside, we're not in the most luxurious of locations, but still down the road, you've got Pebble Beach, and, they're all on our doorstep. So we'd love to be a reason to get people to Carrow and then show them everything else there is, or a reason to stop in Carrow. And as we are along the Wild Atlantic Way, yes, we would like to think eventually there will be a busy tap room there, and some kind of, food association as well would be great.
Yeah, that'd be absolutely incredible to see. Love to visit, and yeah, hugely popular. I'm sure the amount of, hopefully soon the amount of tourists going by the door will be incredible. Yeah.
And it's such a lovely part of the world. Like, come and drink beer out of a tap and then go on and visit a lovely beach. Happy days.
Yeah, that's the dream, isn't it? That's probably what you were at in Australia. brought it back with you. So yeah, I suppose. Another addition to the bus tap room tour, Brian. We've racked up many destinations along these calls, so I think
get one of those cycling things. You can go on a cycling tour.
Yeah. As I said, my first time trying the lager, we'd just to echo what everyone else said in the call, we'd love to see it more widely available. Well, personally, I'm in Dublin. It's great to see Lehman Beer Cloud get it in and to be able to pop it in the box here and to be able to get it around to people all over the country.
Yeah, so, the guys have been great. So, it's, as I said, the response to these beers have been amazing and lovely. And, hopefully we'll just get out more. Beer Cloud are great for getting around nationally. So, we're such a tiny team at the moment. It's hard for us to do. So to have those guys doing that for us is brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. They're doing great work, and they're so open and facilitating with the beer boxes like this as well. It's usually just a hit list. It's like, there you go get them, and then they have them. So it's great. So let me see, just final wrap up comments here. Yeah, a lot of love for the tap room. Richard saying Wild Atlantic Way beer road trip from Kinnegar to West Kerry via Connemara, Sligo, and others.
Perfect.
Yeah. Libby says we're in. Yeah, well, you're definitely at one end of it, Libby. Brendan was saying I drank it far too quickly. A half-litre can would be great for the lager, or maybe even like 440s, I suppose, or.
Yeah, well, like as I said, we're an open book at the moment. I like 330s, so we started with 330s. But world's our oyster at the moment. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just buy more of them.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, Anya, we're on the hour now, and I think we've covered the questions and comments there. I just want to say, massive thank you for coming on. Absolutely pleasure to have you. Beers are super. They've gone down a treat. I'm absolutely delighted for this is my as I said, my first sample of the lager, and it's beautiful. So yeah.
Thank you so much, and thanks for organising this. This is brilliant, and congrats to everyone. Thanks very much.
No worries at all. Cheers on it. Thanks a mil.
See ya. Thanks.
Bye there. Bye. Okay, so let me see. We have Grainne up next from Metalman. Yeah, lovely comments coming in there by the way, Anya, in the chat there. Grainne, do we have you?
I am here and I'm unmuted.
There you
as instructed.
How are things?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
We can, yeah. Is there a slight echo or are we okay? Let me just listen back.
I don't really know. Might be bring my laptop a little bit closer, which is where the mic is. Is that any better?
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, spot on. Sounds good.
Okay. Sweet. Hi everyone. I'm kicking back. I'm taking full advantage of Friday night with an instruction to drink beer all evening. So I've got the armchair, I've got the TV. I'm practically have my feet up. I'd put them up if it didn't look so like completely disinterested. But maybe for later on. So great to be here, and thanks for inviting me on.
No worries at all. So we've got I suppose Tip Tango and Heat Sink in the box. Obviously it's up to whoever is drinking it, whatever they want to have this evening. I'm going to have the Heat Sink myself. I have it out here beside me. But I will go. Same. Very nice, very nice. Yeah, sure. I guess we'll start with the Heat Sink. But while we're pouring it and starting to enjoy it, why don't you say a quick hello and introduce yourself? I suppose.
Absolutely. So I'm Grainne. I'm one of the founders of Metalman Brewing down in Waterford. We are a microbrewery in the city that's set up 10 years ago. It's hard to believe. We launched our first beer on the 3rd of March in 2011. And I just, in some ways, it feels like a long time ago. And in other ways, it feels like a few weeks back. Even with the pandemic in the middle of it, which makes all of time seem very, very strange. But back in 2011, we brewed our first batch of beer in the White Gypsy Brewery in Templemore. So that's where our first batch of pale ale ever came out of. And we moved our production to Waterford then in 2012 and upgraded since then. And we've been churning out beer ever since. Incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's your 10th birthday as well. That's great. Great to.
I know, I can't believe it. Ancient. We're like past it pretty much. I think we probably have to go into forced retirement at this stage.
Don't be silly. The beer is coming out as always, but I think it's great that. No, sorry, I won't rephrase. I'll rephrase that. It's not great that COVID has happened, but in terms of accessibility of beers with all the online off license and everything, for me, it's been much easier to get my hands on Metalman beers than it normally would be. So I think that's been a slight positive. And the beers coming out they're stunning, absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
So that leads us on to it again. Heat Sink. Why don't you let us know what we've got here?
So this was one of the first beers we released in cans. We started canning in 2015. We were the first Irish microbrewery to install a canning line way back when people were still like, you're going to put your beer in cans? Are you crazy? Cans are awful. But haven't we all come a long way since then? So this was released for the first time in 2015. It's a smoked chili porter. Now I will put my hand up and say this batch should have a little bit more chili in it, but when we carbonated it, for some reason this time, the carbonation knocked a lot of the chili flavor away. So there's a little bit of heat on the finish. Ideally, we'd like it a little bit more, but the last batch of this that we brewed, we got complaints that the chili was too much. So something like when you start putting chili in your beer, you're kind of walking a very fine line between it's way too much and I just can't taste it at all. So this is a smoked porter that we use Vireman's Beach smoked malt to give it that sort of smoky flavor. There's a nice bit of coffee and cocoa going on from the other dark malts that we use in there. Again, it's all Vireman stuff. And then we add not chipotle, dried bird's eye chilies. In the conditioning stage. So some of them go into the kettle, but then we put more in the conditioning stage to give it that sort of heat, but without that vegetal chili flavor, because you want to sort of avoid like any of that in the final beer. So the idea is basically to deliver a really warming beer that gives you just this nice little burn that grows a little bit as you drink it, but is overpowering and isn't in your face. So as I said, it can be a fine line to walk. But yeah, so I hope whoever is drinking it enjoys it.
Definitely, yeah. As I said, I'm on it myself. I took it out of the fridge about half an hour ago. I think as it comes up to the room temp a little bit as well, you do get a bit more of that heat. It kind of does just linger on the tongue at the end. It's beautiful. Yeah,
it's only ever meant to be sort of a seasoning, not like a flavor as such, I suppose. But if you let it warm up a little bit, the smoke really kind of starts to jump out of the glass at you. You get a lovely big kind of a bacony hit on the nose as well. Not everyone's cup of tea. I'll be the first to admit that, but it's something I love. So yeah, brewer's choice.
Yeah. So okay, right. You're going 10 years now. It's been an incredible journey for you, no doubt. Why don't you give us I suppose the brief history to date? What have been the highlights along the way? I guess you've obviously seen a lot.
Wow. Well, it probably sounds really, really cheesy, but like it still stays with me. The very first time I went into a pub and somebody that I didn't know came up to the bar behind me and ordered a pint of Metalman. That was like, it was probably in the Bull and Castle, actually. I see Tom Carla there. And I remember, I think probably Dave Cummins was behind the bar, and I was just like shaking with excitement, idea that, it wasn't someone I knew who was ordering a pity pint. It wasn't someone who was related to me who was ordering a real pity pint. It was a legitimate person who had heard about this beer and who had had it before and wanted to have it again. And I was so psyched. And I think any of us who have gone down the route of opening a brewery have probably had an experience, something like that at some point early on in their days, where it's like, holy crap, we're really doing this. We're creating something that people want, that people try and like and are going back for more of. And that, stuff like that is a super exciting thing. And it's stuff like that keeps you going then along the years. It's when you try something new and you get a good response to it and see people reacting to it. That's the sort of stuff that gives you a real buzz and makes you go, yay, beer.
Yeah. You mentioned the Bull and Castle there. Yeah, Ruben is saying he has fond memories of the homebrew market research before the brewery opened at the Bull and Castle meetings.
Ah, yes. Yeah, I'd say Ruben probably tried our pale ale prototypes back in the fond old days. We were living around the corner from the Bull and Castle at the time and had this notion of getting into the brewing industry. And we would go, I think it was the third Thursday of every month, Ruben, would that be right? We would all meet up in the Bull and Castle with our arms full of homebrew, where the staff would turn a complete blind eye to the fact that we only all ever bought like one pint and then just got drunk on our own hooch for the evening until we ran out, and then we would start buying more beer from behind the bar. But those were the years, I think, where Tim and I really learned an awful lot about brewing at that stage. We had been home brewing a bit, but we were home brewing in a vacuum. The internet wasn't quite as pervasive as it is today. And that was the first time that we found ourselves in a group of people that were like-minded and were also brewing, and they were so welcoming and ready to share all their information. We really hadn't a clue what we were doing. We brewed some like shitty home beer, pardon the French, up to that point. But when we started going to those meetings, there were people there who were like talking about, adding hops at various stages in primary and secondary conditioning, and testing out different yeast strains for flavor comparisons, and single hop brewing to see what a hop was really, really like. And we were like, bloody hell, what are all these geeks on about? This is brilliant. Sign us up. Where you mean it's only once a month? This is terrible. So, we hadn't a clue, and we learned so much, and we were welcomed with open arms. We had so much fun at those meetings. It's definitely one of the reasons that Metalman exists. I will say that.
Amazing, yeah. And you mentioned Dave Cummins there and Tom Carroll. Dave was on with the Porterhouse at our last meetup, and he basically told us that Tom Carroll was your covert salesman, essentially. Someone was ordering a pint of
totally. And he wasn't even very covert.
Well,
100%.
yeah, amazing. Great stories. Great to hear. Huge amount of comments here for me to try and catch up on. There's a lot of love coming in for Heatsink anyway. It's going down really well. Some people are liking just the amount of spiciness and smokiness in it, and some people are saying maybe a touch more chili. So again, I think it's
a fine line.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're probably on the line with it though as well. I think you're
maybe. I suppose I'm always paranoid because once I tried a beer. I ordered a beer in a bar in Barcelona when I was there a few years back, and I love chili in beer. I think it can be really, really fun, and I know it's definitely not for everyone. But I ordered this beer that was going to have like a good hit of chili and other spices in it, and I took a sip out of it, and I was like, oh my god, this is like such a delicious beer. I really, really love this beer, and I got about this much of the way through it, and then I was like, I can't drink anymore. I was really upset because it was like a €12 beer or something shit like that. But it was there was so much chili flavor in it and so much spice flavor in it that it was so cumulative that by the time I was like a third of the way through it, I was like, I can't drink any more of this. I'm so upset because I know I'm not getting my money back. But so yeah, it can be a really, really difficult thing to sort of walk that line between drinkability and that massive flavor hit that sometimes you just want from a beer.
Sure,
for the first 3 sips, then maybe not so much after that.
Yeah, it has to be finishable. I think that's part of number 1 of the criteria.
Finishable, that's a really good word actually.
Yeah.
Is it finishable? That's all we can strive for.
Yeah. A lot of love coming in, as I said. I saw, Carla was saying it works a treat with some cheese, the beer.
Oh, yes. Good. Also chocolate, by the way. Salty salt chocolate, really also good. But cheese, yep, I could do that.
Lovely. Adam saying he lives in Dublin, but he's from Waterford, and he's gone out of his way to find Metalman in Dublin over the years. So yeah, that's great to hear.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I suppose we have a couple of heads on Tip Tango tonight as well, I would guess. Would you mind giving us a quick overview of Tip Tango? Let us know what they're drinking.
Yeah, sure. So I suppose we first brewed this a couple of years back. We wanted to do something that was light in alcohol, that had a good, like, decent flavor, but to sort of kind of serve that the alcohol out of it, so that you go out and have maybe 4 or 5 pints of something on like a Sunday or a Monday night and be confident about being able to get up and function in the morning. That was kind of where it came from. So we decided we would try and brew something that had a really low body, 2.5%, but that had enough flavor in it to kind of disguise, basically kid your brain that you were drinking something that was low ABV. So we decided to add a little bit of lactose into a sort of a session beer that we went for a very low OG. We brewed with standard yeast, and then we liquor back in the kettle to a low original gravity, but then we add lactose as well, so that you've got a feeling of body from the beer itself, from those unfermentable sugars. But lactose is a fine line before it ends up feeling a little bit cloying. And then we just basically dry hop the bejesus out of it in the tank, so that you've got this kind of nice hop hit. And it does, I mean, the body's thing, it's really hard not to brew to an 2.5% beer that doesn't have a thin body. But I think it sort of carries itself off like a bigger beer. It's like, it's like when you see a Jack Russell on the beach and he's like barking his head off at a couple of German shepherds down like 100 yards away. It thinks it's a bigger beer than it is, for sure.
That's a fantastic analogy. I love it. I had my Tip Tango last night and I thought it was beautiful. My first beer of the evening, and yeah, like, it's a lighter ABV beer, but it didn't bother me, basically. Normally it does. I thought it was lovely.
When I think it really shines is if you have maybe like a lager, if you get your palate sort of warmed up with something like a lager or a Weiss beer, something that's already a little bit sweeter, but doesn't have that hop hit, and then you have a tip tango after it. Your palate is already, because your palate's already sort of in alcohol mode and in beer mode, it's like, oh man, this is just like a hoppy beer. I can't really tell that it's that lower. Now, it doesn't work if you have it after a really hoppy beer. You need something before it that's kind of sweet, and that just gives you that sort of, gives your palate, it kind of tricks your palate a little bit. So drink it, Aine's lager first, and then to tango, laugh.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Perfect setup. Could you just move your laptop a tiny bit closer to you, Grainne? Is that okay, or will it? Or will it fall off the table?
Laptop, maybe a little bit of that. How's that?
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Hopefully that.
My laptop is not where my camera is, if that's what you're wondering.
Yeah. No. It's fine. It's absolutely fine as it is. So the past year, then we talked about kind of local support with Aine and Connemara. Things have obviously been extremely tricky with everything closing down. How have you found the local support in Waterford?
Absolute dose. Local support's been great, but I mean in general it's been a total dose. Like, it's understandably in the grand scheme of things there's more important stuff going on than who's buying my beer, but I suppose it's just been like an incredibly time for a lot of small businesses who need to figure out what it is they're doing, and you just gotta, I suppose, leverage whatever avenues you have available to you to try and keep the lights on and make sure everyone's still getting paid, and just, you know, get on with making beer and getting it out there and getting it in people's hands. But it has been brilliant to see online platforms like Beertag, you know, really coming into their own. So I mean, it's been super, and I think some really innovative stuff has come out of the situation that we've all found ourselves in the last year. None of us, I think, are going to complain about that. I don't think any of it is going to go away again. I can't see Beertag closing up once the pub's back open. They're like, that's everyone, we've had enough. You know, I see that stuff like this will continue to make it easier for people to get the stuff they need without leaving their houses, even more so than it was before, because I think it's forced sort of non-traditional companies or providers or manufacturers to make sure that they're tuned into what's going on in the online space going forward. So yeah, I don't think Zoom is going away anytime soon either. I think we're all going to get really excited about going back to the pub, but then we're going to remember after like a few months that it's really handy to sit in your own chair at home and have a beer and not have to drive home on a Friday evening with a bunch of people who are like-minded. And so I think stuff like this will still be really popular. It just won't be the only option.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, we're all counting down the days till the pubs reopen and we can meet each other face to face again. But yeah, I think there will be some sort of blend, I think, of the two, I guess. And it's very handy not have to get a train or a taxi home or anything like that. Yeah.
Totally. Like, we can definitely get more beer. We can definitely drink a bigger variety of beer now than we could this time last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, the accessibility, I think, has gone through the roof, I think, in terms of getting the beers,
Totally.
which is brilliant for breweries, I think, and the consumer, of course. So let me see. Adam was asking, what was it like to also have a pub to look after?
Pain in the ass. So we opened the pub in 2017, I think. And we had it for about 18 months, but we found ourselves in a situation where we didn't have somebody managing the pub full time. And we sort of were never really able to find the right person for that job. And when the person that we had doing it handed notice in 2018, was it 2019, we were like, you know what, this isn't our core business. This isn't what we're trying to do. This is just distracting us from the brewery. So we had spent that 18 months trying to balance both of them. And I think looking back on it, it's easier to see it now, but at the time it was harder. But looking back on it, because we had the pub open, we weren't doing enough for the brewery, and we weren't doing enough for the pub at the same time. So each one was distracting us from the other. And while it was a tremendous amount of fun, and we had a lot of really good times. We had some brilliant gigs, and we met some fantastic people. It was a monumental amount of work. And when we made the decision to pull back from it and focus on the brewery instead, we kind of didn't realize how relieved we would be until we actually made the decision. So it isn't something I'd rule out again in the future, but running a pub is extremely different to anything in the brewing industry, really. I think a tap room would probably be more aligned with a pub, but even still, it's a completely different body of work. And we wouldn't do it again unless we had someone from day one who is going to be the operational manager on a day-to-day basis and take over all of that stuff. But yeah, so it was an interesting experiment, and we had some fun times, but definitely learned some lessons from it.
Yeah. You brought up tap room there as well. Would that be something on the cards?
Not in our current location. I just don't see how it would work. We're not really set up for it where we are, and we don't really have the room for it. But, you know, you never know what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to catch up in the comments here, Grainne. They've literally been flying in. Let me see now. So Kelly is saying she could have done with the 2.5% session beer the year she visited the brewery with Dior for the 2013 AG. She was a wee bit.
Stop! There were no 2.5% beers those days, Kelly. So I saw recently the next batch of Windjammer is coming out soon. Yes, which is very exciting news. Anything else in the pipeline or anything else coming down the line? Yeah, we do. Just on the Windjammer, I don't know what they were doing in New Zealand last year, but the hops are like. So yeah, this new batch of Windjammer is really, really good. We're pretty excited. We're canning it on Tuesday, so it should be starting to make its way out from the end of next week. We've also got an anniversary beer that I've been tinkering around with for the last 2 months at this stage. So it is a tart cherry coffee porter, and that should be available in about 2 weeks' time. Yeah, fun.
Say that again.
A tart cherry coffee porter.
Wow. Yeah, Sarah said it. Wow. Okay. Ruben saying, yeah, next 2 months.
It's called Decade. So it's on its way. It's on its way.
Incredible. That sounds amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, I think that's going to be a popular one.
We've also got some plans for a new series coming out probably, if I get my shit together, probably the end of April, start of May. We're just kind of finalizing some of the graphics at the moment, but there'll be more information coming about that soon. But it is our Galactic Voyager series. We're just going to basically have a bit of crack, play around with a few different things and a new graphic style, and probably release some 440s because we're sick of people asking us for them, basically. So.
No one's actually asked it yet, so that's interesting. Brian and Libby have equaled the worst joke of the evening so far, so congratulations. They said, sounds very decade and...
Oh, yeah. I like that. I wish I put that on the table.
Yeah, we usually get some terrible jokes. So let me see then. Yeah, I'll put it out there. There's a few comments. Any questions for Grainne, please pop them in, or what you'd like to see Metalman brew next as well. Sounds like there's some fantastically exciting stuff coming down the line, but sure, let us know if there's anything else. There's a question there from Kelvin, I think. Where did the Metalman logo come from? It has a very World War II.
The logo. Yeah, so the name comes from a navigational aid in Tremor, which is like the figure of a soldier standing on top of a pillar. But when we looked at our graphic design, we didn't really feel that that was representative of the direction we were going. It was, we thought it was kind of a little bit staid, it was a little bit old-fashioned, and we wanted to try and do something a little bit more modern with a real, I suppose we were starting with an American style pale. So we wanted to sort of give that nod to an American styling on it. And at the time, as I was putting together the idea for Metalman, I was working for Amazon. So I was over on the West Coast of the States a lot. And there's a brilliant Art Deco scene on the West Coast of the States. There's some really beautiful architecture, really, really pretty Art Deco features kind of everywhere you look. And I was heavily influenced by that. So when I went to our designer, I was like, I want to call it this, but I want the design to be really Art Deco-y. And fortunately, our designer was playing a lot of BioShock at the time. So he was like, I know exactly what you mean. And he got really excited about it as well. And we iterated on it. And yeah, that's what we sort of came up with. So it kind of got those like the kind of aviation wings from the sort of real travel posters of the Art Deco period. Yeah, it was a lot of fun coming up with it. So
yeah, amazing. I love it. There's people saying, yeah, I can see the BioShock link now. BioShock would be a great beer name if it's not trademarked, said Ruben.
I'd say they're all over it, Ruben, somehow.
Yeah. A bit of publicity, Jason
you can't be doing that publicity, all right. Yeah. The big guy crushing the little guy. We always like a bit of that.
BioShack instead, maybe as a so let me see now. Yeah, we're starting to come on time. There was a huge amount of comments earlier that I'll try. I don't know if I can get back to. Loads and loads coming in. Let me see. Thomas is actually on the Atomium, the Belgian style amber. That's a gorgeous beer. That's a gorgeous beer.
And it's not even 9 o'clock. Good man, Tom.
And yeah, speak of the devil, he says that means graphic designers graduated will be churning out Fortnite logos.
It's possible.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, Grainne, I'm thinking we're coming on time now. Just want to say, absolute pleasure to have you on. So good to chat.
Delighted to be here.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember this, but I first met you back in a pub on the Keys in Temple Bar, where you were actually doing, I think Metalman sponsored the event, like a music tech thing. That was around probably 2014, 2015 or something like that. And I was, is that it?
It was upstairs in, yes. Yeah. I think I remember, yeah. There were 3 of us speaking.
Yeah, that's right. I was there as part of a music tech company, and I was listening to you, and I was way more interested in what you were saying, even though I was actually running a music tech company. I was like, maybe it's beer. Maybe that's what I'm more interested in. So yeah, for me, it's an absolute pleasure and honor to have you on. So yeah, and to be chatting. So thank you so much.
Cool. Sorry about my shitty microphone.
It's okay.
Your new laptop.
It's okay. We can hear you. It's fine. So, Grainne, again, thank you so much. Absolute pleasure. And yeah, hopefully we'll get to chat again soon in person at a festival or something like that.
Deadly. I'm going to lurk for the next bit, though. I'm not going anywhere yet.
Yeah, please do. Please lurk. Okay, folks, yeah, we're getting to the time of the evening now. We're going to get into our panel discussion. Yeah, so Christina and Sarah are going to take the reins here now, and we're going to lead a fantastic chat. So we have Adrienne coming in from West Kerry. We have Maeve from Western Herd. Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to mute you here. We have Carla from Wide Street. Going through the list here, we have Claire from Dungarvan. And we have Leah from Whiplash. Okay, folks, you should be able to unmute yourselves now and say hello, I guess. Are we all in?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, Claire.
Hi.
Yeah, I think is that everybody? Yep. Is everyone ready to go?
You.
So, if you don't know me, I'm Christina from the Ladies Craft Beer Society of Ireland and the Beer Ladies podcast, and myself and Sarah.
Hi.
We'll be leading the panel today, so we're going to basically pepper the panelists with a lot of questions, and then feel free to type any questions in the chat, and we'll add those in as we go along. I'm just going to kick it off with a very basic question of how did you get involved in the beer industry, and what drew you to brewing, to the brewing industry? For all the panelists, so whoever wants to jump in first.
I can start if you want, because I am not a brewer, so not on the production or technical side. I work in marketing. My background is mostly PR, so I've kind of grown into the wider role as I've come along. I started working in a PR agency, and the reason why I was attracted to this particular agency and I really, really wanted to work there was because of their fashion client list. But when I got there, I started to work on some of their whiskey brands and beer brands, and I was just totally turned around. I was like, oh my God, this is where I want to be. And so very grateful to have ended up there. I suppose it was not a direct route. I kind of found it as I went along. So worked on a lot of big whiskey launches, a couple of beers as well along the way. After that, I worked with a gin startup, and then kind of came back into the beer world just this year. Started with Whiplash in at the end of July, after a bit of a summer off thanks to COVID. So I was able to come work with the guys there. I'd known Alex for a long time, but I never even thought that we'd end up working together. But yeah, that's kind of a long-winded route into where I've ended up now, but drinks is definitely something that I've been working in for about 5 or 6 years now, and yeah, absolutely love it. It's such a great industry, so welcoming, and this is always something great going on.
Same question out to the rest of the panelists. What drew you to your role in the beer industry, and how did you get sort of started?
Will I go? Maeve, I'm from Western Hard Brewing Company. We've been brewing beer now for 6 years here in Clare. I've been living in Luxembourg, so I was there with Luxembourgish beer, German beer, French beer, and then I moved back to Ireland, and they're like, "Do you want Carlsberg or Heineken?" And we decided no, we didn't. So we started brewing our own. There was no commercial brewery in Clare at the time, so myself and my brother converted an old hay shed, and we started brewing beer. So yeah, I've always loved beer. I'm, learning as I go along. I was more into the, Michael, my brother, was the brewer, and we actually he was kind of a home brewer. So we got a guy over from America. We actually have another American with us at the moment. And himself and my husband went over to the UK to learn how to brew commercially, and they came back after a week and realized we need to hire someone. So, to be at the level we wanted to be at, we needed professional help, basically. So that's kind of what we've been doing then, is kind of brewing West Coast American style beers on the West Coast of Ireland. We took a few little detours to the East Coast, but it's mainly, the West Coast hoppy, strong beers we're kind of going for.
Amazing. Thank you for the introduction. Carla, Claire, Adrienne, does anyone else want to?
I'll go. So I think similar-ish story there to Maeve. Went along with the ride or whatever. We started up Dungarvan, I was about to say 10, it's almost 11 years ago now. And like Maeve, with my brother and my husband and my sister-in-law. So yeah, sort of one of those This is a great crack, won't it? kind of ones. For the full story, I think you should listen to the Beer Ladies podcast, of course. So yeah, sorry, I know I get a bit roll my eyes and sick of telling the story kind of thing, but yeah, it was you know, one of those. Sure, let's take a look at this. Let's see what we can do here. We like this. We like the idea of it, and went for it in 2010. So yeah, dragged into it as well, maybe, or.
Oh, thank you, Claire. Carla or Adrienne, either one of you want to take the floor?
Please, Adrienne. I'll let Adrienne go first, please.
Hi. I don't really know what to say. I've been saying it for 13 years. It's like, what exactly do you need to know?
Why did you choose beer? Like, what was the impetus to going towards beer as opposed to sort of anything else?
I'm a publican for the last 30 years. So I have a license to sell alcohol.
and so that was just a natural flow then to just sort of start the brewery and just go from there. Absolutely.
So in the middle of the recession of 2006-07, and you live in a rural pub where nobody is coming in, just give a spark of inspiration to set up a brewery.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it was just like that. You know, it was a needs must. This is called, you know, this is survival mode here.
Right.
This is, you know, I'm selling beer, and I needed to really push the limits of my brain cells to try and figure out how to make a living. You know, I adore beer. I love what I do. Absolutely adore it. But the spark of inspiration was livelihood, food on the table, pay my bills. Like, it's very basic.
Right. No, and that makes a lot of sense. That's a really interesting story, and I think we need to kind of make room for all of these kind of stories. And it's not just always the, oh, you know, I love beer so much, so I started a brewery. Sometimes it, you know, it is, you know, we have to reskill, we have to expand, and especially in this sort of time of COVID, we can see breweries sort of making these changes and adapting to the environment we're in. So really important story to tell. Thank you. And Carla, if you want to sort of give your background.
Yeah, Christina, good evening, everyone. So I'm the co-founder of White Street Brewing Company. Myself and Sean started the company just about 2 years ago, but I sort of fell into it. We were always home brewer, kind of experimenting with different yeast, different ingredients, and trying so many styles, I suppose. That sort of got me hooked then, and just kind of always was involved in recipe design, and in general I was always into fermentation. So really for me it was food. I would kind of, you know, ferment quite a bit, make my own kimchi, make my own kombucha, and as you know, lactic acid play a big role in fermentation of vegetables. So yeah, kind of the draw towards sour and more strange kind of alternative fermentation method sort of was a big curiosity for us. And as you know, we kind of specialize in mixed fermentation, sort of a little bit alternative sort of fermentation. Yeast is kind of play a big role in the brewery. So that's how I kind of fell into it. And yeah, since 2 to 3 years, we really got the project up and running, and it has been quite exciting so far. And also, I want to say, like, obviously, very much inspired by, you know, the previous speakers, you know, Grainne. I mean, you know, we have to kind of give a shout out to people who kind of were trailblazer. Adrienne, certainly, in her own journey, was an inspiration. You know, the guys at Dungarvan and Claire, and Kyla in Black Donkey. So many great women who were possibly not with us this evening, but yeah, definitely the inspiration and the great help we've received was quite again, kind of got me thinking, yeah, this is an industry you want to be in because of the support you get and just the interaction. So yeah, that's it from me.
Thank you, Carla. So I kind of want to circle back to, well, continuing this conversation of how you got started, and ask you if for women who want to get involved in the beer industry, but they're not necessarily brewers or interested in brewing, but perhaps marketing or some of the other aspects of running a brewery. And this is to the panel, whoever wants to answer this. Do you have any advice that you might give someone who wants to get involved in the beer industry, but not as a brewer?
Yeah, I definitely second this question because I'm particularly interested, but I also think sometimes there's quite a lot of emphasis on the brewing side, and then there's a lot of other aspects that are not as focused on. But yeah.
I can take a little bit of that one if you like. I think definitely, okay, we've got a problem now that we can't go to events or festivals or even bars, but getting out to know people, talking to people, going to festivals, going up to people, especially here, you're going to see the same faces over and over again. Like, just keep talking to them, keep banging on those doors. We're at a point where like there's tons of breweries out there, but perhaps not enough jobs as well. So it's kind of maybe biding your time as well. And in the meantime, maybe learning more about it, upskilling. Like, I've done my WSET in spirits level 2. I'm working on the certified beer server now at the moment. So that's just me trying to understand what happens on the other side of the business, the production side, and how I can use that to kind of to help tell the story of the brewery. And even if it's sales, you know, it's okay, it's enough to read a sales sheet and go, oh, okay, I get this. But like, to really understand where the brewers are coming from and where these ideas are coming from has definitely been a big benefit to me, and to be able to take part in those chats at work when, okay, I don't have the technical ability, but I understand like the processes and stuff like that. But I think definitely talking to people, getting involved with the Craft Beer Society. There's Glow on Facebook are really great. Crafty Beer Girls, Pink Boots as well was already mentioned. Just getting out and talking to people, like, there's definitely a network there that's very open and very helpful. And even something as, I know LinkedIn's not the coolest thing in the world, but like finding those people who, like, whether they work in sales, they work in marketing, like, okay, we work in beer, but at the end of the day, it's still a sales and marketing. Like, you know, those networks are there. Definitely reach out and ask as many questions and meet as many people as possible would be my advice.
Just even going back to the women and, you know, outside the brewery, like inside the brewery, you're there, you're doing your job, it's fine. But when you're actually out on sales calls, there have been times I've gone in, I've met with people because I've been more into that side of the business, and you can see, here's a little girl coming in trying to sell me beer. No, and you can talk to them and you'll eventually win them around. But there's definitely been people, I've just gone to Michael, my brother, and said, look, you're going to have to talk to him. I'm getting nowhere with him. And Michael goes in and 2 seconds later says the exact same thing I've said. And, you know, we're on draft that evening. You know, there is that, and there will always be that, I think, depending on who you're meeting. And like, a lot of our sales are in Clare up until the COVID hit. Like 90% of our sales were in Clare, in bars and restaurants around the county. And, you know, a lot of those landlords or people running the bars wouldn't be the most progressive people, even coming in with the craft beer. You know, we sell it as a local beer because they think craft beer is really strong and everyone's going to die the next morning with the hangover. So there's a educational, you know, side around craft beer. Like, I guess, and like, I'm sure Clare and Dungarvan and anyone and outside Dublin, it might be a little bit easier, but, you know, if they say craft beer sales in Ireland are, you know, pushing on 4%, in Clare is a 0.4%, you're lucky. So yeah, they just see, and it's happened. I've just rang my brother and it's like, you're going to have to talk to this person because I'm just not going to get there.
Yeah, I think for me, in my last job, I did a bit of sales as well, and getting those kind of certs under my belt was the fact that I knew I could stand in front of them and answer any question they asked me, because you'd get the quiz when you walk in. stupid questions about making
doesn't
gin, and I'm
matter.
like, I know the answer, you know the answer. We're gonna have this conversation again, are we? Like, how do you make gin? I'm like, let's just move on. So being confident in what you're talking about, like, for me, has really helped, just getting down that actual knowledge as well. Like, and I've been there.
Yeah, and that's one of the questions we have here. Have you any funny stories of someone assuming you knew nothing about beer and then making them look like a fool when you end up being an expert? That's a very interesting question.
Sorry.
I'll just jump in there over you, Claire. Actually, I kind of would like to point out that really you're talking about your consumer, your customer. It's your customer's ignorance that prevails here. Within the industry of brewing, there's tremendous acceptance of women or whatever we are. They don't really mind, within the industry. It's been a tremendous journey and meeting business people. I'm speaking totally personally, obviously, because we all live within our own skin and only have our own reference of experience. But I couldn't reiterate highly enough my experience, which was with very open-minded. They were all men. They're all falling over themselves to help me and my business progress in a myriad of macro breweries to get my product somewhere close to the consumer whom you're now discussing. And in between the consumer and your beer is a retailer, and the retailer is a geek nerd who hasn't a clue, and he's always male. He's the guy in the pub or the off license that you have to get past. So there's so many layers here, but I really don't think being female is an obstacle in the brewing industry at all. I think it doesn't really matter what you are in terms of the business of brewing, but it's the business of business. Now, in business, that's very patriarchal. I don't know if anybody can understand the difference I'm trying to.
I totally agree with what you're saying there.
Yeah. The separation of the two between the Irish brewing industry, which is one entity, and then the consumers and the retailers, which is sort of something else. Yeah. And the reactions and the way that they treat women are very, very different is sort of what I'm getting. And would everyone agree with that, or do you have different experiences?
I think Adrienne is right in that. She's also, for those who don't know, she's our queen. Absolutely. So, Ronnie's tapping, yes. Within the community, we love and adore her. She's, who we all want to be. That's a really good point about the whole, being accepted within the brewing world and accepted within the business or within the selling world or whatever that kind of thing is. I suppose going back there, I was actually reading that question there earlier about the funny stories about people assuming nothing. I don't know where it's gone now, that we had landed on, and that was part of the reason why I did my sommelier assessment was, and I don't know if it's a fully a male-female thing, to be fair to the men, but there was a bit of a, initially I was more in the background of things, and then when I was going out and doing tastings, doing events, doing festivals and that kind of thing, there was quite a bit of, oh, the lad's not here, where are the boys, and I was like, no, I know. So, that was part of my reason for doing that, was to have my pin to hold up and say, no, actually, here's my thing, my proof, I suppose, like Leah was saying. So that was part of that. There have been, yes, of course, loads of times. I don't know who else. I'm looking at all the faces. I don't know who else. Sorry. Where that has happened. I know one in particular was when I was with a friend, totally off duty. We were in Dublin on a night out together. A very young friend who met up, and we went to a well-known, prominent craft beer bar, I suppose, which I won't name, but the barman did start and did just started totally didn't know what he was talking about and started bluffing. And I was like, no, actually, and my friend was nudging me, going, tell me who you are, tell me. And I was like, no, I just don't want to do that right now, you know, that kind of way. But I mean, I could have put him in my place. I could have said, no, yeah, like, I mean, he was, I wouldn't even say what he was saying because he'd all be appalled, but what he was trying to describe a beer as, and it's like, no, it's not, because I can actually remember what it says on, he was describing and telling me things about it, and I was like, that's totally not right. So, you know, so there have been those times as well, where sometimes it's easier to just go, yeah, grand, I'll have that one, please. You know, and I'm sure all the girls here have experienced that kind of thing. But I mean, that was as being a puncher, I suppose. But yeah, that was sort of similar, I think, to what Leah, sorry, that's why I jumped in, maybe, was saying that was my reason for having my no, here's my piece. Here's my, you do actually get a little badge. Here's my badge. I do know what I'm talking about. I knew it anyway, but it was like, now I had to think, yeah, now you can listen to me. Now I'm worth listening to. I don't know, whatever.
It's funny that you say that, Claire, because there was 4 of us, 3 men and me in the brewery, and I'm the only one with the badge. None of them have.
Here you are now.
So, yeah.
So yeah, well, me and Tom both did it at the same. We did it together. I got mine about half an hour before he did because I went to it. But yeah, so we did. I'm like, funny enough, then Cormac, the brewer doesn't have a badge, so or a pin or whatever, you know. So we know, but that was our way of saying, yeah, we know our stuff as well.
Anyone else have anything to add to that? Or I mean, we can jump off to, do you think that the perception of women in the industry has changed?
I notice, say in my community, I feel that I'm more respected now than I was 13 years ago when I started the brewery. So that's good. But I have a feeling that maybe where I live, the rural perception is different to perhaps if I was in an urban area. So I'm just throwing that in. But I have noticed the difference. Yeah, definitely. But I don't think it's because I'm a brewer. I think it's because I'm in business. Like, so many layers here, guys. You know, we're talking, you know, rural versus urban. You know, it's very different.
Very context specific.
Yes.
Very context specific.
Very.
Does anyone want to follow on to that or add your own personal experiences?
I don't know. I don't feel there has been some drastic change. I think it was always quite an open, inclusive network. Again, like every brewers here, our brewery owner ladies that I've met over the past few years, was always kind of welcoming and willing to answer questions. And yeah, definitely within sort of, I'm sure it was probably, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, probably was a little bit more of a challenge, certainly. And I wouldn't like to see, there was kind of a drastic change. Is it easier today? Possibly more accepted, possibly, but I've always felt quite welcome. And really, let's face it, kind of beer, it's quite a simple product. Beer brings people together in one way. So I think when you come down to it, really, everybody's happy to share a beer at the end of the day. And that's, I think, what it's all about. If you face sort of a little bit of challenges with punters or sales or people people you're trying to bring in, maybe just kind of the education, the openness that we can bring them in, and why don't you try? And I think that wins generally people over. And it's beer at the end of the day, so who wouldn't want to kind of just try and engage with you? So yeah, I feel I've always been sort of on a similar journey, if you like.
Does anyone else want to add on to that question?
No, I'm glad to hear Carla say that, being one of the newer breweries, that they have felt it really generally inclusive and everything, because I think that's the way it always has been, and it's good just to reinforce it, to hear that it still is that way to a newcomer, or relatively, you know what I mean. Because it was such a small gang when we started off, and that we did all know each other quite well and that kind of thing. I know for myself, as it has grown, it's harder and harder to know everyone. You don't me. I don't know everybody the way I would have way back when there was a smaller group to know. So it's just nice to hear that from Carla.
But also, Claire, I just wanted to qualify myself. I think within the industry, it's always been really very inclusive. It's the customer base I was talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's it's funny. Within the industry, it's always marvelous. And I'm so thrilled with all the new breweries coming on board. I relish the thought that we might actually meet in person.
Absolutely. Just to kind of go on that idea of its punters or customers, I was working at a beer festival on a gin stand. I haven't actually worked at a beer festival with a brewery yet, so I'm really looking forward to all that coming back into force, hopefully soon. But like 2 or 3 people said to me on the day, "Isn't it great? There's a gin stand here for the women." You're just like, it's just beyond belief. And like, this isn't the last 2 years. It was a pissy day. We were in a tent. It was freezing cold, and I was just like, I really just don't want to have to do this today. You kind of follow along and say, oh, we've had plenty of guys up here today, they've really enjoyed this cocktail. It's a really bitter, bold flavor. If you like bitter beer, maybe you like this bitter cocktail. They're just like, haha, gin and tonic. You're like, right, there's just no winning with some people. So smile at them, just
like Grainne from Metalman and Adrienne there, I have the pleasure of running a bar as well. So we do a lot of beer tasting, and I'm very, very familiar with customers. But like you were saying earlier about, they come in and they see this blonde girl behind the bar. What does she know about beer? And they'll start talking to you, and you're like, no, that's just not right. And then when you start answering them back, you can actually visibly see the expression change. And it's just, I know, Grainne, you got out of the pub, but like, those are the moments you live for,
I think I just want to briefly talk about, and I've noticed a theme sort of with the conversation that we've been having about this idea of community and how the community can support the brewery. And I just wanted to kind of touch base with how important do you think your local community, your very small, like if you're in Dublin, your Dublin community, or even maybe broader in Ireland, how important do you think is that to your success of your brewery, just having the local community support?
I would just jump in there because I think it's very much based on your business model. What you personally in your business model are looking for. Some of us are looking for our local community. Some have export in mind, and they're, some have retail outlets, pubs attached. Some don't. Some have their tap rooms. So there's a few different options there. I would say personally that the reason, my brewery only exists because I have a pub and a license to sell alcohol, and I needed to try and put food on the table, and I like to eat, and I like to drink, and I like to create, so. And then I like to connect to my community. I have a very deep-rooted reason to being connected to my community, which I won't go into. So my sense of place is very important, which can, so every single aspect of what I do within my day is connected to why I'm here. That extends to my business, but not all businesses are like that. My business is very much about my day-to-day way, my way of living, actually. So your question is very broad in that you need to, what exactly, whom are you addressing? It's because we are all, even though we are all very connected, interconnected in what we're selling, the reason we're doing it is very different.
Right.
I think that question as well, if you asked me 12 months ago, the answers would be very different to what it is now. 12 months ago, we've 2 pubs in Clare. We sell directly. We've other accounts around the county. You can get our beer throughout Clare, but there's 1 or 2 places in Dublin, and that was pretty much it. And now we sell pretty much nothing in Clare because there's nowhere open. And we're sending pallets of beer to Dublin. Like when we follow them, on Instagram, and there's someone in that Thai drinking our beer, or, especially with people being able to buy online. Like we set up our website. It's just, it's blown up, as in expanded, as not as in the demand has gone through the roof. We've very, Jesus, we can nearly name all our customers like this time last year. And now we've no idea who they are or where they are.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, expanding on the question of local community support, is in the times of COVID, have you seen an evolution or a growth in your community that it's expanded beyond what you ever imagined due to the fact that everything is online right now? Pubs are closed, and that's really sucks, but people are finding the time and the money to expand their own what they want to try new beers, and they find you through social media or your websites. And do you see that happening in the last year?
I'll say yes on that one. I find on our site we really have 2 kind of distinct set of customers. We have the on the button every 2 weeks buy a slab of body riddle, and they might never go near our Schwarzbier or our porters or our stouts, and that's obviously perfectly fine. Like they found something that they really like for them. And then we have the kind of adventure seekers who maybe buy in smaller quantity, but they're buying kind of more regularly. They're buying whatever's new or something really, really different. So there's only, it's, I suppose before maybe we were maybe targeting, it was just a general kind of craft customer, but we're definitely getting more people on board who aren't so much interested in all the other, what we think are really cool things that we're doing. They're just happy to have a solid session ale in the fridge, which is great to see, because I think it's kind of like a bit of a gateway then, maybe that they're spending a bit more money per beer than they were before, and obviously that will spread out through other brands and other bars and stuff when that all opens again. Hopefully it continues.
Yeah, and that's something I've really seen. I mean, obviously just through our own online sales, it is, I think, people in, to us, quite out of the way areas. So, way out of the reach that, I mean, we have nationwide distribution, but, there are those sort of more, I don't want to name a town or a bigger area, but, more, smaller town in a way out of Munster kind of place. And that's what I, orders coming in from places like that. So it's like people who have seen our beers, who've tried our beers in the past, who like them, but I'd say it isn't easily accessible to them in their local area. Maybe in the past they were traveling to a bigger town or city, whether commuting or working, or to visit, to go shopping, to whatever. So that's something that I'm really seeing is people who have enjoyed our beers in the past, but are not, I mean, COVID aside, just generally it's not as accessible to them in their area, and now have a channel to buy it. So it's been really good, I think, for us as well.
Yeah, I can echo that as well. I mean, our local community here in Ballymahan, South Longford, for some of you who don't know where we are.
Those kinds of places I meant.
Surprisingly, well, maybe not surprisingly, but yeah, the support has been great. I don't think we would be where we are without the local support. As we started, in fact, from when they didn't know what we were doing. It's quite surprising that you could sell so many amount of sour beer in rural Ireland to people who probably never tried sour beer before. So sometimes, as I said, beer is simple. You enjoy it, you drink it. It's brewed by a local guy. when you have this good kind of grounding and you want to support your local brewery, you come back to it. So no, it has been, people went out of their way, I think, to find us, to ring us, to ask where we, particularly over the festive season. It was quite nice to get that push, I suppose, from the local. And if you don't have that, I think it's I think it's crucial really to, in tandem with other kind of channels, whether it's online or nationwide,
Absolutely. So I'm actually going to go through some of the questions that I'm seeing in the chat. And if you do have a question for any of the panelists, please type in the chat so we can kind of get through them. So the first question is from Jess and Mick, and they're asking, have you ever sent your beers to international competitions?
In general, we've not done competitions. It's kind of, I can understand it's a very powerful sales tool. A lot of them are extremely expensive to enter. A lot of them are pay to play. There's a lot of medals given out. There's 50 categories. So, there's a good chance in spirits anyway, something I found in spirits that they were drilling categories down to, there might have been 10 different gin categories based on ABV or style. Like there was a lot of opportunity to win, which is great. But if you're paying every time to enter competitions, it's a very expensive thing to do. Here locally, Bjor's event, Bjor's award is amazing because it's voted for by people who go out and spend their money on beer and vote based on what they've bought and what they've felt has been worth their money, as opposed to a blank panelist who they could be journalists or sommeliers or whatever. I mean, there's definitely value in them. I absolutely agree with that. But if you were to enter every competition, you could kind of almost put your entire marketing budget behind it and hope.
Yeah, that's true. We entered, in our first year, we entered the Brewing Industry International Awards, and we got a medal at it, which we're delighted with. We still are really proud of it. But it is a thing of they do just cover, I mean, literally my inbox could be full of different competitions. Which ones are which is the one. Now I do still kind of rate that one.
Yeah.
But we have on occasion, I know we did enter the World Beer Awards a few years ago and got something at that, but it is a thing of, they roll around again, and I mean, you are talking big money, to be honest.
They are, yeah.
You could literally be entering them weekly.
Yeah.
I know there's a load on the go at the moment. I know I got a postcard from, I think it was the World Beer Awards this morning. You probably all got one, just to remind me. So there are so many.
Actually, Claire, I'm just going to jump in there. I'll just give you a laugh. So I got the same postcard this morning. My pub is called Tigbrick, Tigbhric. Okay, but it was addressed to Pig Brick. Anyway, that gave me such a laugh. I'm definitely entering that beer competition.
So yeah, it is nice to get them and all, but you could literally be, as Leah said, I mean, the marketing budget, the magic, piece of string or whatever. I mean, you could be constantly at it. So it is nice, as you say, things like when people choose you, like the beer one or we did the IC. I think it was the same winner, even wasn't it? The beer one, the ICI one recently, or to I suppose if somebody else started to come along and say, "Here's an award," rather than you having to fill in all these forms and send off everything.
Writing your story over and over again. I think there's definitely value to them, and I think if it's something people are looking to do, I definitely research them and pick 4 or 5 in a year that you're going to enter. Rather than entering them all. Like I've seen some that have come through and the entry fee has been over €700. Like that is just
per beer.
Per beer. Yeah, it's mad money. And if you're looking through the list of judges and stuff and there's no one's name jumping out at you, you're like, okay, well, who are these people? Like, why should I give them lots of my money to tell me
but
what we already know?
It's not even the price of it. mission, like to try and ship beer to
Yeah.
London or wherever else, because we entered the Great Taste in the UK. I know it's not a beer competition, but like if your product is good, you get an award, so you can kind of respect that. But like we couldn't afford it, so we picked one beer, sent it over, Backbeat or wheat beer. We only had 2 at the time, but like it was. The entry was maybe 60 or 70 sterling, but it was nearly €300 to ship the beer from here to London.
Wow.
And it was grand. We got 2 gold stars. It was like, yeah, now we're award winning. We can do it. Stop winning awards. And to be honest, if you go into the off license and you're faced with the wall of beer, you're not really picking up the award winning, like. And then you have to pay for all the little stickers, and then it was €300 then for the pack, so you could use the award logo. And it's like, I just won this, and I'm not even allowed to tell people unless I pay another 300 quid. So we were out of that stage. We were done with competitions. So we're award-winning brewery. Just drink all of that. Yeah. You just got to pick your battles, really.
We have another question from Brendan's wife, Holly, who asks, how do you increase your female market? And I would like to add on to that, is that even something that you would consider, or is it just like, would you consider marketing directly towards women, or is that something that you even think about?
I'll say straight off, no. No.
I don't think we've ever made a distinction. We haven't marketed directly to men or women.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Consumers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, in terms of how to increase, what was the original? But sorry, increase.
The original question was, how do you increase your female market? And would you even have the data, the data on that? Would you know? Because like you said, would you make a distinction? They're just consumers.
Yeah. Most, I would say, I do know that most of our followers are male, actually. Most people drinking our beers, all of our beers, are male. I don't mind we don't mind who's buying or drinking. I don't think it's necessary to direct it specifically towards women. I don't think it's a relevant thing.
We accidentally did it once. We made this beer and we used a champagne strain of yeast, the brut strain. And, we do a 300-litre batch and we'll bring it into the pub on a Friday evening, and if it sells, it sells. But there was this group of women came in for lunch at 3:00 and we're like, we used a champagne strain of yeast in this, and they drank the 30-litre keg. Right. And people came in later on that evening looking for the beer, because we'd advertised that we had, and we're like, all those ladies over there have the whole lot drank. But that's as close as we've ever come to advertising specifically to women.
It's not something we do specifically. It's definitely people, and people pick up on what you see. I suppose the more you put out, the more people see it, and by virtue of that, there'll definitely be more women that see it. I think though, in terms of like what kind of content we're putting out on our social, we have a team of 10. We've 2 women. We try and cover the entire team, but I suppose having the women of the business kind of seen, whether it's on social or an interview, stuff like that, it does help, but it's not that's our understanding of advertising to everybody, not just to women, but I suppose having that balanced is definitely a tool.
Right.
We have a question from Adam, who asked, how important is co-opetition, as Anya mentioned earlier? He says, strange place to be in, to try to fight against big breweries while also finding your place with other small breweries.
Claire, sorry, I'm going to jump in.
Every time.
I never heard that word co-opetition until this evening. It's funny, for me, from the outset, it just seemed to be that we were in the same field, playing field. If it was a sports field, we were all in the same field, scrambling for the same goalpost. But in some ways, we were on the team to get the ball over the post, which was against the macro brewers. So I've not, but also I recognize totally, because I have my own outlet, my own pub. I'm completely different to other breweries that don't have that outlet. So really what I'm saying is I'm somewhat spoiled with my own platform. But I always felt within the industry that we were all together, sort of. But I amn't in places trying to get my beer on a bar counter. I will say, though, in kind of the most intellectual way of looking at it, in the conceptual way of looking at it, all the mechanisms are on side of each other. I think we all want to be in bars. The difficulty, the real difficulty is the obstacle of the macro breweries and their incentives to curtail pubs in accepting microbreweries. I don't know if people can hear me. Is my sound okay?
Oh, I was going to say, low. Move your computer just a little closer to you.
Sorry.
Thanks.
Is that okay? Anyway, so yeah, I think we're all in the same boat. I'm changing analogies. I'm now not a team on a field. We're in a boat rowing.
Definitely. I think like even just knowing how much chatter goes on between breweries, people even selling equipment and moving up, they're telling people that, oh, we've got something for sale. It's a real network. And it's, I mean, obviously there's a certain amount of competition, but as you say, like we're all in the same boat, we're all trying to make it through. And the more brands there are, the more it becomes a scene, the more attraction you get from consumers or bars or pubs and restaurants. That it's hard to make that happen on your own. So having, that network there is definitely a benefit to everybody.
There was a question that came in from Novo C. Sorry. Craft beers in Ireland have been going from strength to strength pre-pandemic. Do you see this growth continuing after things open up again? Trust. Or do you feel it will be a struggle to sell against the larger multinational brands?
It'll be a scramble. It'll be a scramble. But I do think there's a tremendous appreciation of local.
Yeah, I think as stuff starts to open up, maybe people would have the confidence if they're in their local bar and if they found an amazing craft beer or a brand that they really like over the time, that if they get presented with a selection of, the standards that they'll ask for brands by name or ask for beers by name. It's so powerful. Even if you know that they don't have it in stock, say, oh, have you got Western Herd? No, oh, it's really great stuff. It's a bit of a white lie. But having just saying, that's very bold, is it? Like my local pub is not too far from Rye River, and they have Rye River beer, and it's amazing because there's so many pubs now, they're close to breweries. They don't have any other non kind of macro beer apart from Rye River. So if everybody had their local pub having their local beer, it would make an enormous impact.
I have to say though, after the first lockdown, when the pubs reopened, we struggled to get our taps back. We were the same because you're so limited on capacity. We went from, like, we could only fit 40 people in our pub on a Saturday night and they were gone by 11 o'clock. So there's no point having 8 of our beers on tap. And that's our own pub. So the guys next door didn't even put our beers back on draft. They just got Heineken, Guinness, and that was it. Because one, they don't know how long they're going to be open, and they're going to be left with all these kegs that are open. So I think when the lockdown does lift and pubs are allowed open, it's going to be slow. And that's just the reality of it. Because, you know, bar managers and owners, they're not going to reopen all their lines again. And the ones that they do open, and like, you know, the macro breweries, they're so aggressive. Like, even before COVID, like, we got a line in a pub in Lahinch, and Rockshore came out. They gave him 3 free kegs, and our line was gone.
Yeah.
So
I think
like that's what
a
we're
lot
going
of
to be
that
up
coming.
Yeah,
Especially
that's just the reality of it.
Yeah. If there's stuff like outdoor dining rules and stuff, you know, there's going to be parasols and heaters and even like simple stuff like that. It's just not affordable for small brands. It's going to be a lot of that going on.
The killer is, though, for pubs is closing at 10:30, 11. Like 10:30 to 12, 1 o'clock. That's your drinking time. You know, when people are eating, they're not really drinking. So, yeah, it's not going to be just so the pubs are open, business as usual. That hasn't been our experience of it anyway after the first lockdown.
Yeah, I think, you know, you mentioned Rockshore there, not that we're naming names. No, but I mean, over the years, there's always been, I mean, everybody's lost tax to different Rockshore or other types. And it is certainly a consideration that what we saw last summer and what will be when hopefully, you know, whenever things do open up, that people are opening with more limited. I mean, there's a few publicans here, but that they're, you know, I mean, they've their business to run. They're only going to open with X number of taps, and maybe, you know, they might have the gin or the whiskey or whatever range either. You know, everything's going to be more limited. So there is that. Whereas going back about 3 questions here, maybe, you know, moving back to community and stuff. Going back to all that in the local, I mean, that's where, you know, we get asked a lot, like, oh, why aren't you stocked in such a place? And it's like, why don't you ask them that? You know, why don't you go in and say, I'd like this beer here, you know?
Definitely, there's so much power.
You know, so it's kind of, I think there's a huge, like, you know, it's the people going in and asking are going to be, I mean, that's something, sorry, to get back to the community question, I don't think I answered at the time. Like, we've had great support, and actually really kind of rocking summer here in Dungarvan. It didn't make up for the shortfall elsewhere, but, you know, it was a good boost. And a big part of that was, I mean, we're pleased and delighted that all the pubs we were in put us back on when they did open in the summer, pubs / restaurants, you know. And we had that, I suppose then maybe they didn't, I'm sorry guys if anybody lost out, you know, I suppose maybe they didn't put others in, and I'd say we missed out in other places, in other areas where the focus was more local. So I love seeing that, and I love that. And I was reading comments there as well while I was listening. Katie or somebody said, yeah, to be able to ask for local, that's something that we've really seen here. As I suppose Dungarvan's name has risen, the town's name has risen in the last couple of years, and people have become more aware of it. It's become more of a destination kind of place. That's something that we've really seen. Sorry, I'm way back, obviously, to the community question here as well. You know, so like that's really where I think it comes down to consumers in a lot of places. Like, you know what, this is what I want. I want our local beer, or I want craft beer, or I want a option, and I'm not happy to drink here if that isn't going to be offered to me, or, you know, that's sort of the people power part of it is a big part of it as well, I think, you know.
You've said that a bit nicer than I did. Go in and demand.
How many beers are you after?
We were in the hotel below in Craic, and Craic have a load of local breweries, and we asked for the local beer, and he offered us St. James's Gate. And we're like, Guinness. That was the local beer they were. Sorry, I didn't even have Murphy's. St. James's Gate is like, yeah.
God, I thought we were like 10 years away from that.
I think there's an issue with obviously taps are hard to come by and hard to secure as a permanent line, but when stuff is in cans behind the bar, it's often below eye level. And if we're getting to a point now where we can't go up to a bar to order a drink, they're not even getting seen. If it's going to be table service only, they're not going to be printing out a new menu every week because Whiplash has a new beer coming in. Like, it's just not feasible. It's just not possible. So I think we're really missing the opportunity to go out and talk to our accounts and talk to our trade and tell them what's coming, or even meeting people at festivals, again, to tell them a little bit about the story of the beer and stuff. So it's a real kind of battle between the consumer asking for it, but then if a bar gets it in, but they have it hidden behind the bar below eye level or not on a menu, and then it doesn't sell, and they go, oh, well, never sold. We'll try something else next month. So there's a real tricky balance, especially if you can't actually walk into a bar and talk to somebody.
Absolutely.
I think we're probably almost at the end of this hour. And I was just going to make one point because there was something really nice that Carla said about beer being a simple product and beer brings people together. And I think we can all say, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but these virtual events are actually quite lovely that Brian puts on and that the Ladies Craft Beer puts on, because I feel like I've met more people, and I think we can all say that I've met more people and tasted more beer than I would have in normal times. So beer does really bring us all together, considering there's like how many, 44 of us in 44 of us in here right now. And I think that's pretty awesome.
Cheers to that, Sarah. Thanks a million for having us. Cheers, guys. Well done.
Cheers.
Nice one.
So in that vein, I just want to thank all the panelists for coming and very generously donating their time and letting us sort of annoy them with a million questions. So thank you all so much for really taking the time today to come and talk. So yep, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
I said about Brian the last time about these virtual festivals, like for us, and I'm sure it's the same, there's a lot of people outside of Dublin, but for us to go to a festival in Dublin and then, you know, you've the cost of the festival, you've your accommodation, transport, all that, and then everybody turns around and you're like, oh, where can you get your beer? And it's like, Clare, and there's nowhere in Dublin to get it. So it's nice doing something like this because it's free. I don't have to leave home, and yeah, I get to try everybody's beer at the same time. So yeah, thanks for hosting.
Okay, amazing. I think is that my cue to jump back in?
Yeah.
I'll echo all the comments in the chat here. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much to everyone for joining in there. Christine and Sarah for leading it, for Adrienne, Leah, Carla, Maeve, Claire, super chat, really, really enjoyable, really informative, and yeah, just fantastic. So thank you so much. For getting involved. That's it really. I'm not going to waffle on for too long for a change. So I think it's time now. So we're going into our brewer chat number 4. We have Libby and Rachel from Kinnegar coming up. So let me see now if we can bring you in and say hello. So we've got two beers in the box. It's up to yourself. You have the Session Rye IPA or the Double Rye IPA. If you're a sadist like myself, I'm going for the Double Rye IPA. So obviously pick whichever one you want to drink at the moment. So again, I'll stop yapping. Libby, Rachel, are you there?
I'm here.
Yeah.
Good. we're a mile apart.
Amazing.
Brian, I thought it was a fantastic choice of 2 beers because it reflects myself and Rachel perfectly. I'm a complete ABV wimp, and Bucket and Spade is one of my go-to beers, and Rachel likes things like Shuttle Bucket. So, it's perfect.
Amazing.
I have to say, Libby, that when Sean was reminding me today in the brewery, don't forget to bring home the beer so that you'll know what you're talking about. I did say to him, I don't think I can really genuinely form an opinion on just one can. I might need 2 cans of each beer. And he said, 2 cans of Shuttle Bucket in half an hour. I don't think you need 2, Rachel.
I thought it would be a nice contrast anyway to have kind of the Session Rye and the Double Rye. I've mentioned it before in this. My personal favorite, I think, of the core range is Rust Bucket. So that's a staple in my fridge all the time. So it's nice to have the ones either side of it now, I guess. Yeah. So why don't we go straight into it? Which one do you want to kick off with?
Well,
Libby,
we'll start small.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, right.
You're the absolute bucket and spade aficionado in the brewery.
Yeah, I mean, I'll hold my hands up and be honest. I'm not good at describing beers, and this is something that comes up quite often in that we do quite a lot of sensory analysis, and I suppose we do our best to do proper quality monitoring in the brewery. And one of the things I'm always afraid of is opening my mouth and describing a beer or something the way that I appreciate the beer, because inevitably I'll use the wrong word and I'll be told that's the wrong word, and it's a subjective opinion or whatever, which is not really what I mean at all. But there's a vocabulary that is used for beer, and it's important to be accurate with it. And it's, I suppose, sometimes very difficult to distinguish or to separate the pure pleasure of drinking a beer and describing that with the actual technical description of drinking beer. So I'm going to give you the very non-technical description of Bucket and Spade this evening, which is, it's a really flavoursome, nicely hop forward session IPA. And it gives, I think it's just a fantastic return on your ABV buck. I mean, if you want to drink a 4.2% beer, it gives you a lot of flavour and a lot of return for that. We've actually wondered ourselves from time to time whether we should call it a session rye IPA. And it is a session rye IPA. But in many ways, unlike some of our other rye beers, the rye isn't a very noticeable characteristic in it. So I think for people that are looking for a rye beer, Buck and Spade can actually be a little bit disappointing. And for people that are afraid of a rye beer, it's a deterrent. So it's kind of a topic of discussion now and again, but it is a session rye IPA, and we're still calling it that. But it's just a really drinkable, refreshing beer that's, let's say, a pretty good bang for your ABV buck.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've had quite a few of them in the box actually this time around. We've had quite a few smaller ABV beers that are absolutely packed full of flavour, which is fantastic, absolutely fantastic to see. I got so excited and pouring my beer and wanted to talk about the beer. We didn't actually get I suppose, an introduction and also a quick overview to Kinnegar. Like, I suppose, again, like so many breweries, doesn't need too much of an introduction, but please give us one anyway. Humorous.
Well, I'll definitely let Libby start this one because she was there at the very start, whereas I'm a relatively late addition compared to Libby.
Yeah. Hosted by Rick, who has the great honor of being my husband. But basically, we had a design and communications business between us in our former lives. And you get to the point of, I suppose, when you're in your 40s and you're wondering, do I really have the creative energy to do this for the rest of my life, or do I want to do something different? So we were definitely looking to do something different, and Rick in particular. So after fiddling around with quite a few things, he decided that he might like to make some beer, and he wasn't a home brewer. He was just interested in beer. We both just like food, I suppose, and liked beer. And he started brewing, and I'd say within kind of one brew in the kitchen, he had said, how can we make this a little bit bigger? And we started in 2011 and had a little 50-litre, effectively a homebrew setup. So we had it in our design studio was next to the house, and we had a utility kitchen there. So we started brewing in the utility kitchen. You could go in the door and turn left for design or right for beer. and Rick learned to brew. And from the very beginning, he brewed and I did all the packaging. And I can remember very well, Scraggy Bay was our first dry hop beer. So we Lime Burner was then Devil's Backbone, so pale ale and then amber ale. Scraggy Bay came pretty quickly, and there was dry hopping involved in that, of course, and that there was more of a commitment then. And I remember quite early on, myself and Rick might have been away, wanted to go away for the weekend or something, but Scraggy Bay needed to be dry hopped, and who was there, of course, but Rachel. So from very early on, Rachel got roped into occasionally having to come into the little tiny brewery that we had and dry hop a batch of Scraggy or rack something off. Or anyway, she was always, my memory of Rachel growing up was that she was always interested in science and would have been a great naturalist. I think that probably was your first leaning, Rachel, except that she's afraid
always had a collection of snails and tadpoles and anything with sort of either no legs or lots of legs.
Yeah. So there was an interest in science and a curiosity. I think that's, I think that's probably the most important factor. But it was always, I suppose myself and Rick always knew that Rachel would be inclined towards being a good brewer. When we were only learning ourselves what was going on. And oddly enough, recently, like we've been recruiting recently, and I think recruitment is the most difficult part of the business. Like getting good people, getting the right people for the business is very difficult. But I was thinking recently about what the statistical probability was of finding, a fantastic brewer and now our production manager living within a mile of me, actually a family member, and at the point in her own career where she thought, it might be actually nice to move inside a building instead of being outside it, working with horses. And I think I might like to give brewing a shot. So when we, in 2013, after 2 years of having the little pilot brewery, we went to commercial scale to a 10 hectoliter system. We needed help, and we had someone working with us who was going off for a week's cycle, going from Malin to Mizzen or Mizzen to Malin, and we needed help. And Rick said to Rachel, "You wouldn't come in and help us for a week, would you?" And she's been with us ever since. So Rachel was the first brewer that Rick trained up, and we've pretty much trained everyone. Like in Donegal, you don't find ready-made brewers or packagers hanging from the trees here. So we've pretty much trained everyone. Rick's really a very good teacher, and we've a pretty good team now. So after we spent 4 years here in Rathmullen, the original brewery was our parent, which is right next to where myself and Rick live. We spent 4 years here, 10 hectoliter system. We're brewing twice a day, 4.5 days a week, pretty long days. And then in 2017, we made the move to Letterkenny to a 35 hectoliter system. And that's where we still are. And I think where we'll be probably for the rest of our Kinnegar lives. And in recent times, we've started operating out of Rathmullen again very recently. And it's now we're using it as, we call it the Funk Farm, and it's where we're going to do spontaneous fermentation and basically work with different yeasts. And it's a great opportunity to keep things separate and safe from each other.
Yeah. Your recent Coolship acquisition, it's good to see, and Carla on before also just had got herself and Sean got their Coolship acquired in Longstreet, so it's great to see the 3 of them in Ireland now, and there'll probably be another one in Donegal pretty soon as well.
So I believe, yeah.
Great to see. Who'd have thunk it?
Who'd have thunk it? Yeah.
They would be pretty funky thunks.
Yeah. Just to say, Libby, obviously, like your your hiring policy when it came to Rachel was very fortunate, but I think you need to get it in check. I'm not sure about your most recent hire.
I know, very, very, very questionable.
Yeah. Yeah, he's. I don't think there could be a more perfect. I don't know, company person fit than you've got. So that's fantastic.
Well, Brian, I haven't told Thomas this yet, but when we posted that job, the post position, I remember we had come up with the description, etc. Wanted to get it right, and I remember turning to Rick and Sean afterwards and going, "I wonder would Thomas Carroll apply for that position?" And lo and behold, he did.
Yeah, but like, I suppose, you know, you could have hired someone else. Thomas would have been doing it for free forever anyway. So.
Yeah.
I joke. But yeah, so I'm thinking, Rachel, then we're looking at our shuttle bucket, double rye IPA, which is what I'm on at the moment now. And I have to say, I've been holding off drinking this. I have another couple in the fridge. I was holding off for tonight because I wanted to be my first taste, and it's absolutely spectacular. So
yeah, I'm enjoying it because we only produced one single batch of it, which is a very precious commodity. There certainly haven't been very many spare cans available for staff to consume at home. And ironically, it was one of those batches of beer where our Wild Goose canning line decided to play ball and everything tuned in nice and quickly. So there were feck all seconds for the staff to take home. Hence trying to talk Sean into giving me 2 cans tonight instead of 1, but he didn't fall for it. He only gave me 1. And it's a pretty nice beer. It's definitely something which I would enjoy 2 or 3 cans of an evening. I might regret it the following morning, particularly if I had to work. But it's pretty drinkable. 8% ABV. I do, as Libby says, I like my high ABVs. If on the very rare occasion I'm in a pub where I walk in and there's a blackboard, a menu of beers available, which in Donegal doesn't happen. But the very odd time that I'm in a place like that, I will actually pay heed to the ABVs and choose start on the low. I've learned the hard way that when you're into craft beer, you need to start paying attention to ABVs. Because I tend to drink my first 1 or 2 pretty quickly. And then that's it, the thirst is quenched and I'll slow down and I can tinker with the higher ABVs then. But as we all know, getting to a pub with any kind of a menu at the moment is impossible. So it's whatever you can bring home. And I'm certainly enjoying my shuttle bucket. It's sort of medium to fuller bodied. Like most rye beers, it was a real pain in the ass to brew. Libby was saying that with the bucket and spade, we don't describe it as a session rye IPA. It's just a session IPA. There's percentage-wise of the amount of rye that are in the 2 beers. There's sort of 9% in the bucket and spade. There's 16% in the shuttle bucket. And as anyone who does brewing will tell you, if there's a higher percentage of rye there, you're in for a long day. So as a brewer, and when we put up the production schedule on the week and Libby tells us what we're brewing, we just have to work out then who's doing each brew. If bucket and spade is on the menu for brewing, not a problem. Anyone's quite happy to take it. But if the likes of rust bucket, black bucket, shuttle bucket are on it, then everybody's sort of thinking, I'm due a day off that day. It's going to be a long day. But I have to say that everybody, like all of us brewers, would be in agreement that it's worth the effort. The extra little bit of flavour that you get from rye is definitely worth the effort. Yeah. And funny, I was actually doing my homework at the table where Thomas was sitting, pulling the brew sheets from the shuttle bucket and the bucket and spade, because you go to beer festivals. Apparently, I very rarely do, but you go to beer festivals and people ask you, what malts do you use and what hops do you use, and I look, I think I remember these things. I haven't a clue, so I have to do my homework for things like this. And I noticed that on the shuttle bucket batch rider that follows it around the brewery, we noted what hops we wanted to use in the dry hop, and there was a note beside the hopping for the dry hop that said, assess after the first dry hop to see whether or not it needs a second dry hop. In other words, we reckon that there might be enough flavour there after one dry hop to say, yeah, that's good enough, doesn't need any more. It got 5 dry hops. So, Rick is a great believer in if there's any doubt at all about whether or not this is really hitting the spot, we'll give it a little bit more. So shuttle bucket got dry hop 5 times.
That is amazing. Just quickly, I suppose you touched on it with brewing a beer with rye in it. Why does that extend the brewer's day? Well, what makes it so different to a beer without rye?
Well, when you're brewing, you have your initial mash in, and then you let your mash, your malt and your water sit for an hour at a very specific temperature, depending on what it is that you're brewing, so that all the enzymes can get to work and convert your starches into sugar, which is what the brewer is doing, is extracting sugar from the malt. And then you have your forelout, your filtration process, followed by the runoff, where you're drawing the wort, the sugary water, out of your malt and sending it into your kettle for boiling. And you need your grain bed to kind of pull together and act as a filter. But if it pulls together too tight, or if there are a lot of beta-glucans in there that kind of glue the whole thing together, basically your grain bed turns into a concrete block that the liquid can't actually get down through. And it's very easy for that to happen with anything that has a lot of rye in it. It's very easy to make a complete muck of your foreloaf and your runoff, and your grain bed turns to a concrete block, and you have to go back to square one and rake it and mix it up and loosen it all up again and try and get it. Yeah, you have to put a certain amount of pressure on it to get it to pull together so that it will actually act as a filter. But if you put one single bar too much pressure on it, that's it. It's a solid block and the liquid can't come through. So it's a stressful day.
I think there were 2 times when we were still brewing in Rathmullen, where Rachel was generally the early shift, which would have been starting at 4:30 in the morning.
At 4 a.m. excuse me.
4.
I was
sorry.
up at 3:30 in the morning and made the sandwiches to be at work for 4.
But when twice she got to work at 4 o'clock to find that either Kevin or David was still there from the day before from the second brew. Yeah. And that would always have been a double rust bucket day, because they're the ones that took so long. And it's if the brewers have been bold and I want to get a bit of revenge, I'll put a double rust bucket brew on a Friday. That puts them in their place.
And the only thing I will say is that, for better or worse, the sales of black bucket have not yet reached the stage where we need to put in a double black bucket, because it's even slower.
Yeah.
Black bucket, absolutely incredible. So I think that's a call out to everyone here to increase the demand for black bucket so we can brew more. I think that's what Rachel wants.
Oh yeah, that's my heart's desire.
We're getting a lot of love for it here in the comments. I can see them coming in. Eagle Eye Richard has said, is there any significance that this isn't a Brewers at Play, one of the Brewers at Play series?
Yes, it'll be back.
Oh,
so it's going to be one of our seasonals, and we get a lot of grief from our very dear distributors, Grand Cru, because we don't plan enough. We don't give them enough notice of things that are coming, and we're a bit ad hoc. But there are now beers kind of that are becoming, like the pattern is becoming recognizable. So we do Bucket Brigade in the early autumn, Red Rye IPA. We do Flying Saucer for kind of November, December for Christmas. We've never really had anything in the early part. So Shuttle Bucket will be the early part of the year special. So we definitely see it coming back. And that's why right from the beginning it got its own illustration, which I think is worth keeping just for its own sake, whatever about the beer in the can. And yeah, I think we've all enjoyed making it and bringing it out. So we might as well keep it around for a while.
So all the brewers are now thinking, okay, let's see. Okay, so it's been released for St. Patrick's Day. It has to be brewed on such and such a week. That's when I need annual leave.
Yeah. It gives all of us beer drinkers something to look forward to, you know, turn of the year, usually not a lot going on in January, February. So yeah, that's fantastic to hear. That's going to be a seasonal release around that time of year. Brilliant. I suppose we can't not talk about Rusty in when we're talking about these beers. Yeah, obviously somewhat sad story, but what is the story behind it? Rust Bucket in particular.
Behind Rusty or behind Rust Bucket? Okay, Rusty was my dog. So myself and Rick we met in the States and then moved to Berlin and then to Dublin. And one of my main reasons for wanting to move out of a city to Donegal anyway, but I wanted to have a dog, and I always felt that you needed to be living in the country to have a dog, which of course isn't true. But Rusty was my Irish Terrier that I got. He came from Bagot Street in Dublin. He came from in behind there's a convent, I think, on Bagot Street near the Central Bank, or no, not the Central Bank, the Bank of Ireland. And that's where Rusty was bred. And he was with us here in Donegal and he was the most chilled out, coolest, loveliest Irish dog. And unfortunately he got tumours fairly early in life, at the age of 10, and he died while we were developing Rust Bucket. And he deserved to have a dog or have a beer called after him. So Rusty kicked the bucket and Rust Bucket got its name.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a sad story, but also a very happy story as well. I think that he gets to kind of, I suppose, live on through the beer and that keep going. And there's so many iterations of the beer too, which is fantastic. So I think it's lovely. Like, it's lovely the way he can keep the memory going. Yeah, fantastic.
Well, having known Rusty, I think I can definitely say that Rusty would have truly enjoyed driving the bus that was taking all the snakes out of Ireland.
Yeah.
He would have made a great shuttle bucket driver.
Amazing. Yeah, like the comments here. Yeah, a lovely story. Not a dry eye in the house. It's gorgeous. We won't dwell on it too long now. Brendan was asking, is Funk Bucket coming back when K1 gets going?
Rachel, you'll be the best person to answer that in terms of what exactly can be another Funk Bucket.
I suppose, yes. There's no reason why it couldn't. Funk Bucket was basically a fairly simple brew. It was, on the brew deck, it started out as our Saison, wort, and then simply got fermented with Brett rather than a Saison yeast. So from a production point of view, there's no reason why it couldn't. The only thing I would say is that I think the Funk Farm is very much going to be Rick's playground. the regular Kinnegar beers are they're what keeps the ship afloat, and they're produced day in, day out. And like most creative people, I think Rick would certainly get bored pretty quickly in producing the same old all the time, even though, God help us, we have 13 beers now in our core range. We don't have a big enough cold room to hold them all, I can tell you. And we don't have enough tanks to keep them all on the go all the time. But even at that, Rick would definitely get bored producing the same beers all the time. So the Funk Farm, I think, will be his way of experimenting and trying different things and getting to play outside the box. So whilst Funk Bucket certainly would be reproducible, I don't know that it will be reproduced. That remains to be seen.
Yeah, I'll have to see. Yeah, that's incredible. 13 in the core range, and both.
I think I'm right in saying that, haven't I, Libby?
Yeah, you are. We rationalised things in the last year, and we had so many different categories of core range, recurring special, less frequently recurring special, seasonal. So then we basically, and confusion arose when the cans came in, and basically what we ended up with was 2 core ranges. We had our original core range in bottles, and then we had what developed as a core range in cans. So now that our original 6 core beers are available in can, that kind of gave us an awful lot of beers. So we've determined what the 13 are that we make all the time, and the others are divided into seasonals and basically the Brewers at Play series. So the Brewers at Play has given us a lot of freedom to, have a bit of fun and not have to come up with an illustration and a name for every beer that we make. So that was a lot of hard work.
You're probably delighted with that. Yeah. Speaking of which, then, any new Brewers at Play coming down the line pretty soon, or can you reveal anything along those lines?
Yeah, we have 2 of them. One of them was going to be packaged this week, but we haven't packaged it. So we have another in our hazy session IPA series coming along. That's number 14, and number 15 is a milk stout, kind of a vanilla coffee milk stout. So some of you might remember that we had our first imperial stout just before Christmas. It was one that Thomas, our French brewer, made, and there was a lot of vanilla involved in that, and we had vanilla left. So we said, okay, let's have another go at a stout. So we've made a milk stout and more vanilla, and that'll be number 15. So,
okay, very nice. That sounds excellent.
They're the 2 that we know are coming, and there'll be more after that.
Yeah, we'll see what happens after that. I'm looking at the clock. We've just come on 10 o'clock. So I guess we'll start to wrap it up there. Just looking, I'm sure you'll see the comments in there. There's loads of questions I didn't even get to, which you could address in the chat if you so fancy. But yeah, loads of love for the beers, yourself, the brewery, everything coming in. So just want to say, Libby and Rachel, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing. As everyone knows and loves Kinnegar, you're doing such a fantastic job brewing incredible beers that are available all around the country. And the old adage is that Kinnegar don't make bad beers, and it's so true. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us, Brian. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah.
No worries at all. You're very welcome. Ruben saying, you had to get in there. Brown ale next. Yeah.
Oh, Ruben, I'm on your side. I've been trying to get them to brew it for ages.
Yes. Okay. We have this knowledge. We have an insider now, Ruben. We'll get the brown ale going.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So we're coming on to our final guest of the evening. Dialing all the way from the west coast of Australia, or of America even. Jesus, I've had a few beers. So we've got Aiden coming on from Heaney. Are you there, Aiden?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, perfect. Yeah, how are things?
Good. So I'm obviously in California. Hello, everybody. Also, I just want to do a quick plug. Like, I'm a little bit fangirling. I love Kinnegar's beers so much. One of my all-time favorite Irish breweries. So it's finally nice to meet the people behind the beer. Nice to meet you, Rachel. Hi, Libby. Yeah, so I'm here in California. I think we're expecting a thunderstorm, ironically, just to go with the theme of me zooming to Ireland right now. So sadly, I don't have my own beer here. I've gotten kind of stuck in California mid-pandemic, so I hope you're all enjoying my beer.
Yeah, well, that's cue now for people to crack open. I think it's incredibly fitting that it's a West Coast IPA that we have from Heaney. I'm going to grab mine from the fridge really quickly. Oh, you've gone for the classic.
So I have a few different ones here. I wanted to promo some local beer that I think is great if you guys ever able to get a hold of it. I know Modern Times sometimes you can get in Ireland, but I have a few others here as well. So I've got Modern Times. I've got Artifacts, which is just down the road from my parents' house here in SoCal. And by the way, I'm in Orange County, California, guys, in case you're wondering, where is she in Southern California? That's where I'm at. I've got some Abnormal Beer Co., which is San Diego, and the classic. Sierra Nevada is a great brewery. They're super eco-friendly. Their workers are treated really well. Gotta love Sierra Nevada.
Yeah, we love Sierra Nevada. Absolutely. Okay, right. I need to grab my beer out of the fridge. While I'm doing that, you've already kind of said hello, but tell us a bit about yourself, Aiden, in terms of you were working in Heaney, obviously. Yeah, why don't you go with that? So, I'll grab the beer.
I think there's some people here who know me. For anybody who doesn't know me, I've been with Heaney for a couple of years now, and I actually have a background in academia and anthropology and history. So my journey to beer wasn't quite the same as most people's, I would say, who did the homebrew brewery route. I decided to work in breweries while I was doing all my degrees, and because it pays so well. It does not pay well at all. I'm from California originally. I actually got my first brewing job on the East Coast of America in the Boston area. For anybody who's more familiar with that area, it's actually Lowell, Massachusetts. And I worked in a production facility there, about 40 barrels, my first job. I was an apprentice, worked my way up. Terrible company to work for, switched breweries, came back to the West Coast and then moved to Ireland. And I think I moved to Ireland in 2017. And I went to Queen's up in Belfast. And I did my master's dissertation on craft beer within Ireland and workers' control. So I look at things from a Chomskyist, anarchist lens. And yeah, I've been working with Heaney since Mel got the brick and mortar place open. And I'm really excited to talk to you guys about beer.
Yeah, amazing. And thanks a million for joining in, especially obviously huge time difference. You're having beers at probably 2:00 in the day or something over there.
2:00 in the afternoon, but my dad's actually cracking one open right now. Oh, he's got the abnormal one. Yeah. So my dad's cooking, I'm drinking, per usual.
Brilliant. So I suppose we're drinking the Heaney beer at the moment. So tell us a bit about Heaney, about the story behind it.
So I met Mal when I was using Boundary as one of the breweries I was examining. They were co-op, and Mal was working in Boundary and also launching his brand from there. Heaney is based in Balahi right now, so we have our brewery's up and running now. It's on the Seamus Heaney farmland. So Mal's wife, Susie, she's a Heaney. And Seamus Heaney was her uncle. We are now on 100% renewable energy, which has been a goal for us for a while. And I think I talked about that our last meetup. Right now, it's me, Mal, Shane working at the brewery, and Shane is kind of taking over some of the canning line production stuff. Mal is owner operator, and he's actually having to brew right now, which is great for me. Although I'm a little bit out of shape from not lifting grain for however many months I've been gone. And I'm expecting to be back late April, early May, maybe. I got kind of stuck in California mid-pandemic. I was a little bit worried about my visa, so I came back and I'm renewing and all of that. And Brexit has just been wonderful.
Nice of you to say you got stuck.
And so, yeah, that's basically where we're at. And Heaney, I don't know how many core brands we have, but you guys can look us up online. We're kind of all over the place, but we do have our own canning line now, which is a big deal for us. So right as I left, the canning line came in.
Yeah, I've seen that actually. A good few of the beers coming out in cans. There was a whole new kind of batch of them now recently, I suppose. With this one, I saw the New England one came out, the Irish White Ale as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's great to see. And the bottle line as well. Obviously, we've had you on at the Bottle Fest before, and you're actually you headlined our very first virtual beer festival too.
Oh yeah, I did, huh? Yeah, like we were there. I remember that now. Yeah.
I remember it well, having the Imperial Stout at the end of and 12 beers.
I keep putting me at the end of Beer Fest, which is probably good because people are a little bit drunk by the time they have to listen to me.
So I suppose your story then, how did you end up over in Ireland? You were studying Queen's.
Yeah, I moved for school, and I ended up. I wanted to focus on something different for my master's dissertation, and my supervisor was like, "You already have a background as a manual laborer, like why don't you focus on beer and brewing?" And so that's kind of how I ended up doing that. I was in a PhD program in Galway and kind of doing the commute thing, but I've decided to switch PhD programs mid-pandemic, and so we'll see where I end up for right now. But yeah, I've been with Mal and Susie and the brewery from pretty early on. Okay,
yeah, amazing. I know you've kind of been a little bit detached from it recently, or well, not present at the brewery, but how have the guys been doing lately? Like in terms of, you obviously got the canning line in, but then how have they coped recently in terms of pandemic?
So for us up in Balahi, like we feel a little bit awkward saying this, but it's been really good in terms of sales because people are doing more take-home beer. In sharp contrast to a lot of my friends out here in San Diego, LA, and Orange County, where they really depend on tap rooms. I mean, there's not the same focus on distribution and can sales and all of that. So yeah, I mean, it's sad to say, but like our sales they were pushed forward. Somebody in the group chat earlier mentioned that they've tried a greater variety of beers mid-pandemic because there's been more of a focus on online beer sales. And I would say that has benefited us a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think remember Mal saying this before in terms of it's kind of a good thing that you can get the Republic, but also UK as well, where he's based. I know the licensing laws are a nightmare.
They are. Yeah. I was actually just on FaceTime with Mal a few days back, and I had asked him, I was like, hey, we're doing this thing. Should I talk about Brexit at all and how that's impacted us? And he was like, honestly, the biggest frustration lately has been cardboard. I don't know if that's been anybody else's struggle, but apparently we're having a real hard time getting cardboard.
It's always the most random mundane things that happen, isn't it?
I know,
yeah, that's gas. I suppose you got started with Mal and you met him in Boundary and stuff, but did you have a brewing background before then, or were you kind of?
Yeah, so I've worked in brewing on the production side mostly for the better part of a decade, I would say. I'm trying to remember exactly when I moved to Lowell, but I did start it as an apprentice. So basically scrubbing floors, cleaning tanks, that kind of thing, which is pretty much like what you do the whole way through your brewing career. Yeah, that's my background, and I've done that in conjunction with doing school full-time. So I usually work full-time and school full-time, which is, I know, insane to most Europeans who are like, what about holidays? Well, Americans we don't get those.
Yeah, fair enough. I suppose then the beer itself, I know you technically don't have it in front of you, but West Coast IPA. I
like to flatter myself and say it's pretty much like the same thing as here in Nevada. Like we did model the recipe after that. The color should be pretty similar. I don't know how good the lighting is in here.
It looks pretty close to me.
Yeah, so the recipe I think is about 90% Morris Otter, some light crystal, and a dab of Munich for biscuitiness, and obviously like the piney citrusy hops. I can't exactly remember which hops are in here, but you get the vibe. I tend to use really casual language when talking about beer myself. I know that I think it was Libby earlier who mentioned, but language and stuff. I think beer should be super accessible. It's for working people. It's for everybody. So yeah, that's my description of our West Coast IPA. I think what's interesting, one of the reasons I brought these other beers here is for comparison to what's a West Coast IPA now. This Sierra Nevada, what you guys are drinking, the Heaney one, I think is slightly more bitter and piney than what most West Coast breweries are now producing as their IPAs. There was like a big influence from the East Coast haze bombs that came through. So like you go to a lot of breweries that label them West Coast here now, and it's like orange juice, you know what I mean? So definitely like there's a contrast, and like that speaks to how beer styles are ever changing and based on geography and all that as well.
Yeah, that's funny. I was actually going to ask you, I suppose, when the last time you were home was, and has the beer market on the West Coast changed much in that between time?
So I'm usually home once a year. Like I miss my family, got to hang out with them. They come over to Belfast, usually at Christmas. So usually like every 12 to 6 months I'm home. I have noticed a shift in terms of, I think I mentioned this at our last beer fest. The East Coast beer scene kind of definitely has been influencing California with the haze bombs. Currently, there's not a lot, there's tap rooms that are open, but I've been kind of not out and about because we're in the middle of a pandemic. So I haven't been visiting many tap rooms, although I do have a few collabs lined up. And it's interesting because I'm deferring to the people that I'm working with because they actually have to sell the beer here. It has to sell here. And at the last collab I did, which was with Creative Creature in San Diego in January, he wanted to do a Saison or a barrel-aged beer. So now I think breweries here are kind of taking advantage of the fact that they have time to let stuff sit. That's kind of my impression of how the pandemic's influenced here. And then I'm also doing on St. Patrick's Day, I'm doing another collab with Noble Ale Works, which I don't know if anybody has heard of them. They're in Anaheim. They're kind of a big deal in Orange County. We're doing an Imperial Red with them. And I've never been, during a collab, no one's ever suggested a red ale. So this is kind of like an interesting shift I'm seeing where I'm like, hey, what do you guys want to brew? And on the East Coast, I did a Saison with Remnant Brewing. My buddy Charlie used to brew with me at my first brewing job, and we decided to do a collab when I was over there for a month. So yeah, it's interesting what people are suggesting to me in terms of collabs. It's almost like they're like, screw it, we're in a pandemic. Somebody's going to buy it, you know?
Yeah, amazing. It's fantastic. It's a red ale as well, because like, as I said before to you, the Heaney red ale it's just outstanding. Like I absolutely love it. It's
yeah. So
beer.
We're still in the state, like that collab stage of recipe development. Collabs are a much bigger deal in America than they are in Ireland, from my perspective. Somebody might say something different about that, but I'd see that they happen more here. And they're definitely a greater part of like the brewing community vibe in California and on the East Coast. I've never brewed in the Midwest, so I can't speak to that. But yeah, so I think that's a kind of a good litmus test to see what's selling where. You know what I mean? Charlie was like, let's do a Saison, and it sold out super quickly. And he doesn't do any distribution. It's all sold in the tap room. And at that time, they were doing a lot of to-go beer, so crowlers and growlers and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, amazing. It's good to hear though, like trying out different styles like that, like Saison, obviously beautiful style of beer, amazing to do. So it's good that I suppose the boundaries are being pushed a little bit and new things have been tried. We had a question from Brendan there asking, is a US West Coast IPA more piney with a higher ABV?
Yes, that is my perception. Obviously, styles are a little bit subjective across geography and culture. But I think basically the US took the UK Irish version of an IPA and said, okay, let's just crank this the fuck up. Like, it is so hoppy. And I remember thinking the very first time I went to Ireland in 2010, oh my gosh, I can't find an IPA anywhere. I mean, obviously there were IPAs, they just didn't taste what I knew to be an IPA. So I think just in general, on the West Coast of America, we're more hoppy, we're more bitter. Like even my personal experience with like the real ale movement in the UK, my dad's from Leicester. And so I've kind of had some of the UK crafts, real ale, I don't know. I'll put real ale in quotes because it's all real ale if it's made with ale yeast, in my opinion. Yeah, so like I think things tend to be like more bitter on the West Coast of the US from my perspective. And I would say like what I've experienced of Australian beers, Australian IPAs are also in line with that.
Just trying to jump back to the comments here. There's plenty coming in. About Imperial Red Ales, yeah. BR number 2 was Imperial Red Ale, said Ruben, the brewed. Yeah, Imperial Red sounds awesome. So yeah, no, I think it does sound good. Be amazing to see something here.
Yeah, so it's in whiskey barrels. We'll see how it turns out. I'm very excited. The color is beautiful. The lads have been sending stuff in the group chat. And we're actually, as a byproduct of that collaboration, once COVID's made it a little more safe to travel, we'll be doing a Heaney collab in Mexico somewhere, because that brewer is actually from Mexico and he commutes across the border to SD every day. So it's been like a kind of a cool opportunity for us as a brewery to do collabs and organize stuff. Even
That's
outside.
amazing. Deadly, yeah. The last time I was chatting to Mal, actually, he mentioned something along the lines of, you said it earlier that the energy efficiency, you were like fully, is it neutral now or what is it?
Yeah, he sent me a text earlier and he was like, let everybody know we're renewable energy and it's 100%. So that's kind of cool for us.
Yeah, he said something about the New England IPA or something being the first beer to be brewed fully renewable energy, or the first beer you brewed, I suppose. Yes, that's really cool. Yeah, really important. Thomas was asking, which is better, Orange County or Balahi?
Okay, there's not taco trucks and breakfast burritos in Balahi. So I don't know what barometer we're using. I mean, in terms of like beautiful open rolling fields, Balahi. And I do love the fact that we're on like farmland, and like, I'm sure if anybody follows me on Instagram, you've seen the cows. I love our cows. So breakfast roll, taco trucks, or breakfast burrito. Honestly, we stop at Greg's a lot. So like, I don't know, can you compare Greg's vegan sausage roll to breakfast?
Yeah, I don't think so. Greg's, love for Greg's. Do you have a well at Heaney?
No, we do not.
Okay. In terms of brews coming down the line, so when you come back and you make your phenomenal return to Balahi, will you have different influences from being over in the States now and different beer styles to bring back and ideas to try and brew?
I mean, honestly, I think a great experience for me as a brewer and as somebody who just kind of really loves like learning from the people I'm around. Like, I am really eager to learn more from the Irish market as it develops and grows, because some of the stuff in America is really great and it's phenomenal, but it's, you know, with a market this saturated, you don't get the same level of experimentation as I think the Irish market's more open to at the moment. I think, was Carla, were you talking about sour beers earlier and like how some people have never had that before, and like there's an opportunity to really engage consumers in that way? So yes and no. I mean, we kind of all draw on our experiences, but even when I like with this collab that my friend wants to set up in Mexico, like, I mean, I'm eager to learn from them there, you know what I mean? So it's just about like being open to like, hey, what does the Irish consumer want? Because it doesn't do any good for an American to go over and be like, hey, this style is great, you should just drink this. It's like, what pairs well with Irish food? What pairs well for like the climate there? I mean, honestly, I don't really want to drink a Corona in Ireland very often. But like definitely a dirty stout at the Sunflower, heck yeah, let's do that, you know? So I think it's about staying local to local demand as well. That's what makes craft beer great, is that there's such a diversity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The comments just exploded here now, so I'll try and keep up. Oh yeah, brown ale, obviously, says Lorraine. Yeah, brown ale has to be on the cards for Heaney. Has to be. We'll pick it if it's not. So yeah, with the question there, do you see yourself trying to do more collaborations when you come back, like the one in Whiskey Barrels at the Mexican brewery you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, Mal and I are always open to collabs. I think it's one of the great things about the beer industry. Like, anybody can do a decent beer, in my opinion, but it's really about the relationships we build with other people and the communities that we build. Cue my communist rant. And yeah, so for me, I'm always open to collaborations. I know Mal is too. It's usually a matter of logistics on his end. For me, I'm always like, let's go. So yeah, I'm always open to collabs. I know Mal is too.
Okay, yeah, amazing. That's great to hear. All of our other breweries on here this evening as well. There you go. Paul and Kate saying loving this IPA, even though it's not my favorite style. Love the Can't Catch Me too. Yeah, did you try Can't Catch Me? Were you?
Yeah, I brewed that. I also picked up a pump when it got stuck with the treacle we added. So
that was a stunning beer. Yeah, that was just for gingerbread imperial stout for anyone else if they didn't have it or didn't try it. It was a beautiful, beautiful beer.
Yeah, our big beer stouts seem to sell really well every year around, because I think it's around Christmas time we usually release them.
Yeah, gorgeous. Richard's saying West Coast US is sometimes said to be a year ahead of the rest of us. So what's next in beer? I guess that's kind of what we're talking about.
I think most breweries are just trying to survive right now, from what I can see. Like I said, I think some places are taking this opportunity to try things like barrel aging a little bit more, because as we all know, everybody in production, tank turnaround is key. And so this has been an opportunity for some people to try different styles that take longer. So maybe lagers, like, I'm not really sure. I think everybody's experience is different. I think that the tap rooms reopening will tell us a lot about where consumer demand is at as well. And like promoting responsible drinking is like probably really important mid-pandemic when everybody's feeling like a little stressed, whether you have kids at home or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Thomas is saying a breakfast burrito brown ale.
I'm here for it, guys. I am here for it. It's mostly going to be eating breakfast burritos while we brew, but I'm here for it.
Yeah. Let me see. With amazing beers in Mexico, and I can recommend some, says Jess and Mick. Collabs and sour. Sorry, trying to catch up. Jesus, it's getting to that time in the evening where the questions or the comments are going out. Lorraine was asking, are you doing a tap room?
I think that's definitely in the cards in the future. I'd actually don't, this is really bad of me, but I don't know where legislation is at in Northern Ireland at this point, post-Brexit with tap rooms. But I know that that's something Mal would love to do. One of the women on the Women's Beer Club Ireland earlier was mentioning like that link between consumers and producers of beer and stuff like that. And for me, as the things that I think is really key, we've just got a big roll of thunder here, is building that relationship, because I do think that cultivates, one, more responsible drinking, and two, like the alienation of the worker to the product is one thing, but also like the alienation of like, it's nice to know where your stuff comes from. Like I always like, whether it's a piece of clothing I'm buying, food or whatever, I always like to see and hear how that was produced if I can, right? So bridging that gap between producer and consumer is what a tap room does. And I think it's really key to like a healthy road forward for craft beer anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And I'm sure everyone else feels the same way. When it does happen, yeah, we'll have to start in Balahi then, and then hit Kinnegar and go all the way down the West Coast via Clare and into Connemara. Yeah. We'll make it out. There's too many tours that are going to happen after these meetups, tell you. Yeah, I'm thinking like we're getting onto the time now. I don't know if there's any more formal questions people want to ask, but we can start to wrap it up there. We can finish up our formal session and open it up for chat basically. Yeah. I think we're just going to do it. So what I'll say is, folks, thank you so much to everyone for coming on this evening, picking up a beer box as always, supporting independent Irish breweries, coming on for the chats. This is an absolutely fantastic collab event. Loved linking up with the Ladies Craft Beer Society of Ireland. Sarah, Christina, have been an absolute pleasure to deal with. We've come up with some fantastic things together. Really enjoyed the chats. Panel discussion was incredible. Everything about it I thought was absolutely fantastic, to be able to celebrate International Women's Day, International Women's Brew Day, and have a fun event around it. So yeah, that's it. We're going to wrap up our formal event there, as I say, and yeah, thank you so much.